Look at that, Gail Lewis.
Good
wow.
evening. And welcome to Qptv Election Night 2024 live. I am Gail Lewis, and this evening it's my pleasure to be with you on Qptv. And sharing the stage with me tonight is none other than Queen's own Tom Gretsch. Good evening, Tom.
Gail, thanks so much for being here with me. This is our third time's a charm. We started together in 2016, a nail biter and an all-nighter, then again in 2020, and now in 2024. And what's old is new again, it looks like, right? With some of the same cast of characters out there running and working and trying to get elected.
Absolutely, Tom. It seems like what's old is new again, just like you said, but there's also a lot of other exciting things going on in the election this evening, Tom. As you said, we've got the presidential, but also we have a lot of local races that are races to watch. So as you go out and you cast that ballot for the presidential, you go down the ballot and you look at those local elections. Any elections that you're watching tonight, Tom?
Yeah, so across the region, I'm thinking a lot about what's going on in District 4. Anthony D'Esposito's currently incumbent there, as well as some other seats in the Rockaways on the state side. Stacey Pfeffer Amato, a hotly contested seat, and we shall see. It's at a fever pitch, and every congressional seat right now in our country is up for grabs.
Absolutely. So it's a lot to watch this evening, Tom. Thanks. First, though, we are going to keep it local and have a word from Queens Borough President and Rosedale resident, Donovan Richards.
Happy Election Day, Queens. I'm Queensboro President Donovan Richards, and I'm proud to have casted my vote on Election Day. Today, we exercise our right as Americans and choose the path we want our country to take for the next 4 years. No matter who you voted for, thank you to everyone who cast their ballot this fall, and thank you for tuning in to Qptv on this momentous night.
Thanks so much, Donovan, for those words of wisdom. So, Donovan, of course, Borough President, Tom.
Yes. What a great young leader with a great future, not only in our county, but dare I say, in our city. He's doing all the right things. He's riding a great wave of development as the Queens Chamber President and CEO. I think a lot about the business implications of our elections from top to bottom, and Donovan's in the right place at the right time, doing some fantastic work.
Absolutely. And speaking of another mover and shaker right here in Queens is Queens District Attorney and Forest Hills resident, Melinda Catz. Melinda?
Qptv viewers, I am your DA, Melinda Catz, and I want to thank Queens Public Television for providing an opportunity for me to update you on the workings of this office. Since I have become the DA 4.5 years ago, my commitment has been unwavering to keep Queens safe while striving for a more equitable criminal justice system. My office is dedicated to public safety by addressing serious crimes such as gang violence, illegal drug operations, and gun trafficking. That includes ghost guns, untraceable, lethal weapons that can be easily assembled inside one's home by purchasing parts online. Ghost guns have become much more prevalent in recent years, but we are fighting back. In fact, our successful investigations and prosecution of ghost gun traffickers has led in Queens County in all of the city of New York with a total number of ghost gun recoveries since 2021. More ghost guns were found in Queens County than any other place in the city. Rest assured, my office will continue to take illegal firearms and those who use them off our streets. At the same time, we recognize that safety is not just about responding to violent crime, but also addressing emerging threats that affect our community's well-being, including an increasing amount of squatting. You cannot enter a home without permission and claim you have a right to stay. We will bring criminal charges and secure indictments, not only for the unlawful occupancy, but also for any forged documents used in the commission of this crime. We also want to protect the community from deed theft and other financial crimes. I urge you to always suspect a scam if someone on the phone is pressuring you or creating a sense of urgency or secrecy, if you are being told that payments must be in the form of cash or gift cards, and if the caller is requesting personal information, such as your social security number, credit card number, or banking information. Never act immediately. Take the time to verify the information and confer with a trusted person. Anyone can fall victim, but this does not mean that the situation is helpless. During my administration, we have achieved tremendous success in returning homes to their rightful owners and removing squatters from the premises. As always, my office is here to help. Whether you've been a victim of a crime or simply need information, call us at 718-286-6300. Again, the number is 718-286-6300. Your engagement is crucial as we collectively enhance safety, community partnerships, and the administration of justice in Queens County. Thank you.
Always great to hear from and see former city council member, former assembly member, former borough president, current DA of Queens County. Certainly stepped into some big shoes when DA Brown passed away after many, many years of service. And I know, and I see it every day, that DA Catz is filling those shoes admirably with some very unique efforts underway to help stop crime and also get people feeling safer in Queens County, in our stores, in our streets. So my hat is off to DA Catz. Thanks so much for your service.
Thanks so much, Tom. Absolutely. So I know that you're watching this evening and you want to be part of the action. So get involved. Hit us up on Instagram at Qptv. Hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/Qptv. Look for us on YouTube as well at Queens Public Television. Hit us up, drop it in the chat, and that way we can read it and respond.
And we're broadcasting live as well, folks, so you got to make sure you log in and check it out. I know my friends and family are out there. Some of my co-workers from the Queens Chamber are out there playing around, so please enjoy yourself and get all the news that you can possibly get here in QPTV.
And Tom, you talked about your family watching this evening, and of course everyone from the Chamber of Commerce here at Queens. Tell us a little bit about the Chamber before we go to our next guest.
So a lot of folks that know me have heard the story before. We are the most diverse county of 3,068 counties in our wonderful country. And if a separate city, Queens would be the 4th largest. Right now, thanks to a lot of different folks, from the borough president to the Port Authority to Steve Cohen and the New York Mets, we're on a tear. We just finished up $8 billion of LaGuardia, embarking on $22 billion rehab of JFK Airport. In the offing is a soccer stadium, nearly $1 billion. Hopefully we'll get some movement on the Metropolitan Park opportunity, as well as we've got things going on at Resorts World down. So Queens is the place to be. We are the place to be, without a doubt. And a lot of development going on, all good and growing, our most diverse county in America.
And speaking of diverse counties, someone who has covered Queens County quite a bit in her role as a local journalist right here in New York is Mary Murphy. She's joining us this evening. Good evening, Mary.
Good evening, Gail and Tom. Thank you for having me on board. I still live in Queens. I was raised here. I've seen a lot of history over the last 40 years. I spent 40 years on New York television.
Mary, you've been an inspiration to many, many people. Great having you at my St. Patrick's Day event a few months ago, and last March. Looking forward to having you again. Some of the things going on. You've covered everybody. You're too young to be a legend in the industry. I mean that, but you've covered everything. What are some of the most consequential events you've covered during elections over the last 35, 40 years?
Well, you know, I remember when George W. Bush was at the Al Smith dinner with one of the Cardinals, and you know, I did cover the Republican convention more than 20 years ago, a lot of local elections when Rudy Giuliani won on his second try for mayor, when George Pataki defeated Mario Cuomo. I've done a lot of criminal justice stories in my time, starting back in the mid-1980s when we had the crack cocaine epidemic decimating some of the housing projects in the city, some of the poorer neighborhoods, some of the law enforcement officers who were killed as a result of turf battles. Then we sort of gravitated into terrorism coverage. I covered the first attack on the World Trade Center with a truck bomb in 1993, and that ushered in a whole era of counterterrorism efforts here in the city. And then, of course, 8 years later, 9/11, and spent about a year on post-9/11 coverage. So I've pretty much seen it all. Nothing surprises me.
You mentioned George Bush at the Al Smith dinner. What was your take on Vice President Harris not showing up in person and allowing former President Donald Trump to have the whole stage to himself?
I was a little bit surprised. I mean, most of the candidates for the presidency do come. You know, I went to Catholic school. When I saw the video with Molly Shannon doing her character, the Catholic schoolgirl, you know, I cringed a little bit. But, I mean, it was funny. Molly Shannon's very funny. I just didn't know how that would play to that audience. I wasn't there, but it's something that I filed away in my brain like, I don't know.
Yeah. No matter your religious beliefs, I think it was kind of an interesting take that she was the first person as a candidate to not show up. And there's some great history there between Clinton, both of the Clintons, and their previous competitors to that race being there, and a lot of jocularity, a lot of bad jokes, a lot of good jokes. But interesting take this year without having Vice President Harris there.
Yeah. But she was on SNL just this past Saturday night.
Yeah, and some of the folks at the FCC were not exactly thrilled about that. But you know what? The folks in this business, in the political business and the becoming an elected business, they go through great lengths to get the attention of the electorate and try to make sure that their voice and their face is heard. And I think, frankly, both candidates have a good job with that. But that was one that she won up Trump greatly on Saturday Night Live, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame her for taking the opportunity. And I think some equal time, so to speak, was given to Donald Trump. I think he got 2 ads that he was able to, you know, put out a message. But it's not quite the same as being on Saturday Night Live.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So thank you so much, Mary, for joining us on set this evening. Any predictions before we've got about 10 seconds left. Any predictions?
You know, I'm really not quite a political pundit. You know, I think we may see a so-called surprise. Everyone's saying this is a nail biter. You don't know what people are feeling in their hearts necessarily. You don't even know when they say who they're voting for, if they're really going to vote for that person. We may see a surprise.
Okay, we will keep watching, and thanks so much for your insights with all of your experience in local politics and local journalism. Thanks again, Mary Murphy.
Thank you.
Tom, we are about to introduce someone I know that you know very well. Vicky. Do you want to go ahead and introduce her?
Really
for
happy
us?
to introduce the grand dame of media here in Queens and beyond, and that's the owner and the publisher of Schnapp's Media. And that would be the one and only Vicky Schnapp.
Welcome. I'm Victoria Schnapp, and I'm delighted to be with you on election night. My son Josh and I are co-publishers of the Queens Courier, the Bayside Times Ledger Group. We also publish Noticia and Caribbean Life, and you might catch us on QNS.com or Queens Post in every neighborhood. But I have fun also on my podcast with Power Women and the A-listers. Tonight, though, we are focused on the people who will have an impact on your lives because they are going to be the ones you elect tonight. So with no further ado, let me introduce my wonderful guests. Welcome. I'm so delighted to have Michael Petry with us, who is running for Congress. And I'm happy to know that as the clock ticks towards the closing of, it's like the closing of the gates, the closing of the voting, that he is here to share with us his his most important concerns that he's heard from the voters. And what are you going to do about it?
Thank you so much, Vicki. I'm Mike Petry. I'm an attorney, former New York State Assemblyman, running to be the People's United States Congressman in District 3 in Queens, which includes Whitestone, Douglaston, Bayside, Bay Terrace, Little Neck, Queens Village, making sure that we restore common sense, passing the torch from the age of the career politician to the next generation common sense Republican. I support women's rights and parental rights. I'm focused on creating safe, secure, and affordable communities, stopping the migrant problem and securing our borders, standing 100% with Israel, and making sure that more money go into our pockets rather than the government's. That's what I'm looking to do, and the people need a voice that's about us. I don't come from a political family. It's about making a difference. That's why I got involved, and that's why I've been asking the people's vote for the past 8.5 months. I'm hoping all your viewers who are watching will vote Republican Mike Petry for United States Congress.
Well, you've really hit every button that has to be hit. And when you've gone out into the communities, is there one or two issues that seem to resonate and get people's blood pressure up? I mean, how are you finding you peeled off so many issues that are so powerful?
Absolutely. I mean, you talk to the Jewish community, and they want to make sure that I stand with Israel. And when my opponent asked to be an honorary member of the squad, that's a problem for them. But I went to the World Summit for Counterterrorism in Israel. I heard from the heads of the IDF and the Mossad of what we need to do for the total destruction of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Terror Republic of Iran. And then it's also about making sure that the migrant issue is getting quashed, because the border crisis isn't just 2,000 miles away anymore. It's right here at home with Creedmoor. And in this district, you're going to have Mike Petry that supports mass deportation. You're going to have Mike Petry that's focused on legal, merit-based immigration. And you got Mike Petry who's going to end the asylum loopholes, stop catch and release, and make sure we're focused on law-abiding citizens first instead of criminals.
Well, when you're in Congress, how can you work with the other folks to get something done? I think this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Why is there such animosity that stops things from getting done?
Yeah. Well, my opponent has been a career politician in government for 30 years and clearly is not someone that is able to make that change. But beauty is as a former New York State Assemblyman, I already did it in the state legislature. I worked with both sides of the aisle. When I first ran for New York State Assembly, I said extremism on either side cannot be tolerated. And that was 6 years ago. And now, as your United States Congressman, the ladies and gentlemen watching this, they're going to rest assured knowing Mike Petry is ready to do what needs to be done. If it helps us, I'm in. If it hurts us, I'm out. I don't care if it's a Republican, Democrat, or independent issue. That's what matters to me, because the people are voting for Mike Petry to be our voice together. This is our opportunity to pass the torch. This is our opportunity to make sure we have someone with pure heart. My opponent left this seat already to run for governor. He doesn't want to be here. His heart's not in it. But I left my state assembly seat to run for Congress. My heart's all in this. And I'm asking the people, if you feel as I feel and you believe that America can be brighter, can be greater, can be better, then I'm asking you, why don't you change it up now and have the right guy in there that's going to make that difference, and voting Republican Mike Petry for United States Congress.
Well, I love your passion, and I think that's what our country is about, the passion of the people. And you certainly are showing us that. And I've been delighted to have you with us today. So thank you, Mike Petry, who is running for the United States Congress in our beautiful borough of Queens. Tell us again the borough parts that you are going to be representing if you are elected.
If you live in Whitestone, Douglaston Manor, Bayside, Bay Terrace, Little Neck, Queens Village, go down ballot in the Republican line. Vote row B for Republican Mike Petry for United States Congress.
Well said. Well said. Happy to have had this moment to share with you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Vicki.
I am delighted to welcome dear friend Debbie Markel. And I'm so proud of you that you were recently chosen the Assembly District Leader for District 26. But for those of us who don't know who and what is District 26, would you please let us know, Deb?
Sure. Thank you, Vicki, for having me on. It's very exciting, and it's exciting time in America, and it's exciting time in the district. Assembly District 26 services Northeast Queens. It's Douglaston, Little Neck, Bayside, and Flora Park. So it's an exciting time. I want to thank Carol Gresser for her service to the community. It is the Jefferson Democratic Club that I am serving, and I was elected to replace Carol to lead our district forward and continue the good work and even do more for our district and put it on the map.
So I know that Flora Park is really the North Shore Towers. Is that correct? And where
Yes,
you
it
live,
is.
and we're proud to have the North Shore Towers Courier. But tell me a bit what you're hearing. You're out on the streets. I know I try to invite you for dinner and you're too busy. You're busy going out and meeting and shaking hands. Tell me what you're hearing on the street are the biggest issues facing people today.
Well, we have a big congressional race, as everybody knows. Tom Suozzi is running for Congress. The community loves Tom because he has the right message. And the message is common sense prevails. And a lot of people on the street want common sense. They want to know that their benefits are going to be protected and they're going to be safe in the district. And they want to know that the women's right to choose is very big on everybody's mind this year. And I think that becomes the conversation of what kind of common sense prevails. We did have, unfortunately, someone that represented our district for a short time who really was not appropriate for the district and for people. So when Tom came back and took his seat, and everybody was very excited to see that, because it brings common sense back to Queens, and he has a big district that goes through Nassau and Suffolk. So it's very happy in the Queens side that we bring the representation back to being respectful.
Well, I know you went through the hell of George Santos, so we're not, that's a chapter in our political history that we're all sad about.
Right.
And tell me what you're hearing are some of the issues that makes people's blood boil and makes people smile.
Well, Medicare certainly at the towers is something that everybody wants to protect. Their benefits, their health care, that's very important. And people want to protect that and don't want to have a conversation of something they've earned their whole life, and they have the whole life, and they don't want anything to happen because that will change their quality of life. And we do want to make sure that everyone keeps their benefits, and women are concerned about their children and their grandchildren, and the situation that they want to keep their medical, and a woman's right to choose is very important.
Well, I think that has become what do we call this? The torch that people are carrying to protect a woman's rights. And I think that seems to be something that will galvanize, I hope, people to come to the polls and vote. We're at the touchstone of the last minutes before the polls close, as we're on TV now. And I wondered also about, is there fractiousness? I feel so badly that people can't be feeling differently on subjects without being angry. What did you see out there?
Oh, people are very angry in all directions. And it's very difficult to talk about the top of the ticket. You can't have a dinner conversation and bring up politics because it's very polarizing this year. All people do talk about that's important is common sense. And you want to make sure that we protect our right and the right that people before us have fought for, to make sure that our children are safe and secure. And I think that's what's on everybody's mind. They want to worry about their families and the legacy they're going to leave for their families.
This is Debbie Markell with me, and I am so proud that you have become the Assembly District Leader for 26 up in Northeast Queens. So carry on.
We will, and may tonight make everybody proud, whoever wins.
Thank you. Thanks for being
with me. Vicki.
Till next time. Welcome, Tom Zitch. Tom, you are running for Congress, and I'm so happy to meet you for the first time, but I'm sure you've been active in the community to take this plunge into the congressional race. Tell me what district you're representing or hope to represent.
District 6 in Queens. It's one of the three actual districts in Queens. Yes, it's right in the center of Queens.
So what neighborhoods would you say are in that world that you are in that district? Because, nobody knows district numbers. They know neighborhoods. We're a neighborhood-driven communities.
Well, my district, it goes all the way from Eastern Queens and Bayside down to Fresh Meadows, into Kew Gardens, over to a little bit of Richmond Hill, and into Forest Hills. And it used to be Glendale, but no more. Now it's just Middle Village. But then it shoots up over into Maspeth and Woodside, a little bit of Sunnyside, Jackson Heights, Corona, Elmhurst, basically all the middle of Queens.
Wow. That is quite a chunk of our wonderful borough. And asking me, to interview you because you're running for Congress says to myself, what is your mission? What made you decide to invest your money, your time, your effort to win that seat?
Well, right now, I'm retired. And for 40 years or so that I was in the Bricklayers Union, I worked and I built a lot of schools, the School Construction Authority. And now that I'm retired, I kind of got a little bit taken aback about the way the country was turning. And sitting back and watching TV every night, I decided that, maybe we should see if we can help and do something about it, being that I am retired and have a lot of time on my hands at the time. So 4 years ago, we decided that since we took a look at some of the races in Queens, with being that it's all Democrats, nobody really ran against Grace Meng for like 4 or 5 elections. Nobody significantly did any kind of damage in a way, to run against anyone in the county. So we decided to see what we could do. And like I said, since the first time that we ran, we got 37%, which is a pretty big chunk considering that Queens is 7-1 Democrat. By the numbers, I'm legally only supposed to get about 16-17%.
So what were the issues that you mentioned drove you to want to run? And what is it that you're hearing on the street people are concerned about?
Well, at this point in time, what the first thing, to be honest with you, the first thing that grabbed my attention was the Agenda 21 from the United Nations about confiscating the firearms in America. And they were trying to implement that. I mean, it's changed now to Agenda 30, apparently, because they didn't meet their goal. But that was it, the Second Amendment rights of the citizens of the United States. That was the first real issue that caught my attention. And then after that, there were other issues. And now, right now, there's a couple issues that are really hurting everybody: is the inflation, price of goods, transportation-wise, the cost of living that's going up, immigration, what's happening with the illegals here, and like I said, the crime is out of control.
So what, it's good to say what issues you're hearing. What action would you take to be able to correct some of these things that have come to your attention and that are, things that you want to bring to people's attention, you want to correct?
Well, at this point in time, I would be one vote out of 435 down in Washington. But we would try to, make a lot of influence down there to the point where, because our borough, Queens, is the world's borough. We have 197 different nationalities represented, 157 different languages, and everyone I meet out here, we all get along. We in Queens was the only borough when you heard all about the anti-Semitism or the anti-Asian hate thing. Queens is the only borough that nothing ever happened there.
So I'm so happy to introduce to everybody Thomas Zitch, who is running for Congress. Good luck to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I am delighted to introduce an old friend, a dear friend, our City Councilwoman, Joanne Ariola. Welcome, Joanne.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
So I know that you have been serving in the City Council. In fact, are you the Republican leader now?
So I am not the minority leader, but I am the chair of Fire and Emergency Management, the only Republican to chair a committee in the City Council.
I'm so proud of you. Tell me about the district you serve. What does it encompass? What neighborhoods?
It's the 32nd Council District, and it encompasses from Central to Western Rockaway on the peninsula, up and into Broad Channel, Howard Beach, a portion of Ozone Park, both on the west side and on the east side of Cross Bay Boulevard, up and into Woodhaven. I represent all of Woodhaven. I have all of Forest Park, and then I have all of Eastern Glendale. It is a very large district. It's shaped like the boot of Italy. So I think it's appropriate. But it is a wonderful district. And I'm so proud to support it and to be the representative for it.
So, we have the Ridgewood Times that represents Bathurst and Glendale and Ridgewood and Middle Village, and their districts have been slashed in different parts, right? So it's interesting. The City Council is, only a piece of my Ridgewood Times. but I know we have media all over Queens that cover the district. And what are you hearing, Joanne? You're out in the street, you're out on the, stump trying to elect Republicans. Tell me what issues you're hearing are most important to people on the street.
But we have been out on the stump, and what we're hearing is very much the same as what we heard back in 21 and in 23 when I ran for this seat, which is public safety, education, quality of life. We're starting to see the negative impact that the influx of the migrant crisis has had on our city. We're starting to see the impact of the defund the police that has happened to our city, the bail reform, the criminal justice reform laws that are disastrous. We're seeing the effect of raising the age, because now we have violent criminals who are underage and unable to be prosecuted. So we're seeing a real reduction in the quality of life, and people have just had enough. And that's what they're telling us. They're ready for a change.
Well, this quality of life issue is really a state issue. How can we help them, make this change back to what it was? I mean, it just happened within the last, decade that they changed the rules and the crime has so increased because of it?
It has increased, but when you have one party rule in the gubernatorial mansion, in the assembly, in the Senate, then they can write their own bills, they pass them, and we're the ones that are suffering for it. So what we're looking to do is close the gap of the supermajority in the assembly and get more senators elected, so that more common sense senators and assembly members, to really kind of close the gap. We may not be able to turn into the majority, but we certainly can lessen the supermajority in both houses. Because when there's one party rule, there's no check and balance. And once party rule came into power, that's when all these negative changes were made. Yes, they went back and tried to fix it, but they did not go far enough with fixing it. And we are reaping all the negative effects of it. You can't go into a store doesn't have shelves that are either empty, or you have to ring a bell to get your deodorant. The small business owners are suffering with shoplifting. Everybody is committing crimes, and none of them are cash eligible. So they're just coming out with either a desk appearance ticket, or if it's a violent crime and it's a minor, who are now being utilized by gang members and recruited to do these violent crimes, because they know they'll just wind up in family court. The Senate, the Assembly, and our governor really has to wake up to see that we have to change our sanctuary state designation, which Governor Hochul can do with one swipe of the pen. And the Senate and the Assembly have to start to fight against the leadership, which is so far left. But we don't have fighters. We have people who go along to get along. And that's what I'm fighting for, people to be elected that will not be a rubber stamp.
Joanne Ariola, thank you for being with us, City Councilwoman in a very special district down in Howard Beach in Western Queens. Thank you for being with us.
Vicki, thank you for all the wonderful coverage, and thank you for everything you do for this borough. God bless.
Thank you. Bye. Welcome. I am so delighted to speak to an old friend, Grace Meng, our Congresswoman here in Queens, representing the district for many years. Grace, welcome.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be back.
So let me ask you, how many years have you served in the Congress, since you've been elected to the district?
Well, I was elected in 2012, so this will be my 12th year in Congress.
Wow. Well, that's a journey of its own kind. Grace, tell us what neighborhoods you serve in.
So I'm proud to represent parts of Queens in Washington. It's the 6th district, and it includes neighborhoods like Bayside, Flushing, Forest Hills, Rego Park, Middle Village, Maspeth, all the way to parts of Jackson Heights and Woodside.
Ah, that is a diverse community. We have a lot of media in those neighborhoods, from the English to the Caribbean to the Richmond Times. But tell me, Grace, you're out there a lot. I know you're so hardworking. What is it you're hearing on the street are the people's biggest concerns?
Well, this is a really exciting time right now. I know that news of the presidential election has kind of dominated the airwaves, but for many Queens people, there are still just day-to-day quality of life issues that are first and foremost on their minds. Cost of living is something that people consistently talk about. We've been trying to work in Congress everything from reducing the price of insulin to $35, which is something that both Republicans and Democrats have been talking about literally since I got into Congress, and we finally got it done. On a local level, I've secured money to start a diaper bank. I mean, the most basic of needs for vulnerable folks in our community. And then, public safety is a big issue. We have been trying to work closely with community-based law enforcement, to the health department to make sure there's an increase in mental health services for people in our community, and just strengthening gun violence legislation, violence prevention programs, including programs to help our youth. So lots of day-to-day quality of life issues.
That's kind of interesting because of the fact that, when it comes down to it, it's an everyday world we live in, and we want to know how we're affected. So from a legislative perspective, are there other things that you hope can be passing if you get elected that would correct some of these things or foster the answers to these problems, such as, which is my nut, is gun control? I just don't get it, how that has not passed.
Yeah, well, we, as House Democrats, we have passed the legislation. When we had passed it, we couldn't get it through the Senate, but obviously we will keep trying. Sometimes legislation gets passed really quickly, and sometimes legislation gets passed, it takes a long time. So we will continue to work hard and push the legislation. America, is one of the developed countries that that suffers from disproportionately high amount of gun violence. We're growing up now where our kids in schools, they have to practice these lockdowns, which is something that we never had to do when we were kids. And so we're still going to continue to work on that. We did pass bipartisan safer communities legislation, which is, more restrictions on guns that are being sold in between states, more restrictions on people under the age of 21 who are buying guns, and of course, funding for organizations that help to combat violence right within our own community. So that's something that we'll still continue to work on.
Well, I think, that is a key. Something as simple as quality of life is a big issue in this campaign. And we are coming close to the election and coming close to the actual closing of the gates of the vote. And hopefully we have a lot of people locally who are voting. And I want to thank Grace Meng, who is our congresswoman up in the eastern and western part of our borough. Thank you for all you do, Grace.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Bye now. I am delighted to welcome Congressman Tom Suozzi, who is a good friend and has a good friend to the community. Welcome, Tom.
Vicki, thanks so much for having me on.
So let's share with everybody the district that you have been serving in and fighting to keep.
I've got the northeast portion of Queens, which is Whitestone and Bay Terrace and a little bit of Bayside and Douglaston and Little Neck and North Shore Towers and Glen Oaks and Floral Park and Belrose. Then I have all along the North Shore of Nassau County, and then I go out a little bit out into Suffolk County in parts of Huntington.
Wow, that's a big footprint to have. But I know you're out there stumping, and I'm wondering, can you share with us what are the issues that people are sort of pulling your, and saying, you got to hear me out on this?
I think it's pretty much similar to what's going on throughout the country. People are very concerned about the southern border. That's one of my main priorities, is to secure the southern border. I've been working across party lines to do that. Number two is to bring the state and local tax deduction back. That's been a real body blow to New Yorkers, especially those in Northeast Queens and north of Nassau and Suffolk. I want to bring money back to the district. There's lots of money that comes out of Washington, D.C. You've got to know how government works and fight to bring that money back to the district. I've been very successful at that, bringing money back to Queens and Nassau and even parts of Suffolk. And I want to try and work to heal the partisan divide. That's my big focus. People know me. I'm against extremism. I focus on common sense, and I try and get people to work across party lines to actually solve problems. Politics, everybody's sick and tired of the finger pointing and the attacking and the insults. They want us to work together to get things done, and that's what I'm all about.
Well, that's such, as you say, common sense. And I hope with this election, maybe that will come to prevail. But I'm very interested in what you said personally, having a home myself, of the deduction. This was something that was onerous to people not to be able to deduct your mortgages. What do you see as the plan here?
Well, they can't deduct their state and local tax deduction and some of their mortgage expenses. And it used to be for 100 years in the United States of America that when they set up the federal tax code, they said, okay, when you pay taxes for your local government, like your school taxes, which is the big hit for many of us out on Long Island at least, or your income taxes that you pay to New York City or to New York State, when you pay those taxes, you should have them deducted from your income. So when you pay your federal taxes, you don't have to pay taxes on the taxes you've already paid. So that was in place for 100 years. And in 2017, in order to generate some money for the federal government to do tax cuts for really the super wealthy, really, and corporations, they got rid of the state and local tax deduction and capped it at only $10,000. And $10,000 doesn't cover you if you live in Northeast Queens or the North Shore of Nassau or out in Suffolk. So I've been fighting for years, since 2017, when President Trump and the Republicans put that in place, to say, listen, this is devastating us here in New York. We've got to get the state and local tax deduction back. And I passed it 3 times through the House, despite enormous opposition from most of the Republicans. I had some Republicans work with me, but most Republicans opposed me. And some of the far left Democrats opposed me. So I built a bipartisan coalition across the country, Democrats and Republicans. I brought in mayors and counties and governors. I brought in the teachers and the firefighters, and I built in the realtors, and I built this national coalition. I passed it through the House 3 times, despite enormous opposition, but we couldn't get it done in the Senate. I think I figured out how to do the secret sauce and build that coalition in the Senate so that next year in 2025, when that cap at $10,000 expires, along with a bunch of other tax cuts expire, I can get the state and local tax deduction back for New Yorkers that have been hurt so badly. Problem.
I love your spirit. I love your spirit, and I love your energy. And hopefully, with that election being resolved tonight, hopefully we can get back to that civility to get things done. Thank you, Congressman Tom Suozzi.
Thank you. All the best to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining me tonight, as we have heard from so many special people who want to lead us and our positions in government. And thank you to Qptv for making it possible for me to be with you tonight. This is Victoria Schnapp saying bye until next time.
Vicki, for that informative segment, as always. And speaking of informative, hit us up on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Qptv, and of course, find us on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Tell us what you're thinking. Drop us a line. Ask us a question, but do it now. And speaking of questions, hi, Tom Gresh.
Hello there. So my family is watching. A lot of my friends have been texting me during the other interviews, and we're out there. We're streaming, and people are listening and making things happen here in Queens. It's all good.
Yeah, it's election night, and many times we, the electorate, we feel as if our vote doesn't matter, right? We're just one of hundreds of thousands or whatever. But local elections matter, and they matter from a business point of view as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You are part of the Queens Chamber of Commerce. Who better to speak to this?
Thank you very much. It's absolutely about some of the laws and regulations. Right now we're in an environment where I personally think, and my members think, which is where it all matters, that there's too many regulations and that government's involved in way too many things to constrict business, right? There's a lot of conversations right now about congestion pricings, whose aim is good, but the rate of the charge that's potentially out there is very high. Everybody believes the MTA should be funded, but people are also worried about the implications for small businesses, and that's a challenge. In places like Queens County, the borough president has worked a lot, very tirelessly, for the 2,500 unit affordable housing project, which means tons of jobs, union jobs, as well as the new soccer stadium from NYCFC. As I mentioned before, the opportunity for a potential property development and an entertainment venue at the 50 acres of asphalt. Government makes a difference there, and right now there's a big effort underway to make the pitch through the ULERT process for 6 different community boards to get the communities in line to understand about the importance of jobs. And not only there's also an opportunity in Southeast Queens for the Resorts World Casino. But we're talking about tens of thousands of jobs for Queens people, billions and billions of private investment, which is truly important. And we can no longer wait to let government folks get in the way. Not all of them, but the ones that do have got to understand that the rest of the world and the nation is not waiting for New York to figure out our stuff. They're looking to us to develop and build projects for not only for housing, but for jobs. And now is the time to strike. So striking while the iron is hot. Absolutely. Yeah. No time like the present. Absolutely. Thank you for your insight, Tom, as always. And when you're speaking about jobs, you're thinking about putting young people to work, and you're thinking about young people voting. And Cliff, do you have any returns for us so far this evening?
Yes, good evening. The numbers are looking quite interesting. There are, as we know, 7 battleground states. The battleground states are Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And everyone says that if you really want to win this election, you have to win Pennsylvania. And right now they have Pennsylvania in Kamala Harris's column. She's also holding on to New Hampshire, Ohio, Rhode Island, Michigan, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Trump, meanwhile, is leading in Indiana, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, West Virginia, and Florida. Just to let you know, we are keeping our eye on some other races, especially here in New York, the House of Representatives, District 14, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, she's running for re-election, so we're watching that race as well. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, she's up for re-election. There are 2 opponents, but they don't seem to be showing, much strength at this time.
So some tight races, some races that we still need to watch. Thanks so much, Cliff. We're going to come back to you in just a few moments for another update. And speaking of updates, we have, and young people, we were talking about jobs and young people a little bit earlier as well. Let's take a look at some young people who are really, really vested and invested in this election. And they are over at St. John's University. And we're going to talk to them right now. We are going to go to Brian Brown. He is in the D'Angelo Activity Center, the DAC, on the Queens campus of St. John's University. Brian is there he is. Hi, Brian. Good evening.
Good to see you. Good evening.
How are you doing there at St. John's tonight, Brian?
We're doing great. We're here at the D'Angelo Center. We've got a good crowd watching the results coming in. We've got some good food, and we'll be here as long as it takes.
About how many students are joining you tonight in the DAC?
It looks like between 50, 60 coming in and out, watching the TV, watching it on their phones, and we're all here for a good time.
Brian, the St. John's is on an upswing. Besides having Rick Pitino back as your basketball coach, which is great for the economy and for the school spirit of the Johnnies. You also recently opened up a new medical facility. I was lucky and blessed to have been there for that ribbon cutting, and we have also worked together with Senator Gillibrand on some pretty cool stuff when it comes to cybersecurity. So it's great to see St. John's on such a roll, and I got to give credit to Father Shanley as well as to the team over there to really continue to elevate the presence of St. John's University right here in Queens.
I appreciate you saying that, Tom, and I appreciate the cooperation of the Chamber. We're a longtime member of the Chamber of Commerce and all the great work that they do. We're very excited about the new building here, the nursing program, the cybersecurity. We just announced an AI major, so a lot of good things happening here at St. John's. And some of the best people who are drivers of all that good stuff is our students. And we're joined tonight by members of Student Government Incorporated. They're hosting this event tonight. And I'm joined, and just a great example of how St. John's brings people in to the borough of Queens. I'm joined by Daniel Sanchez. He's a senior. He's a vice president of student government. He's from Dallas, Texas. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you having me.
And tell us a little bit about why this is important and why student government wanted to host this event.
Certainly, certainly. I mean, I know this was really important for myself and the rest of the members on the executive board because we're the younger generation. You know, we're going to be the ones in the future that are going to be leading this country moving forward. And I think we really all need to be politically engaged. You know, we're all here having a good time. We're eating some great Qdoba that we ordered. Just watching the election, you know, we're not debating. We're not supporting a specific candidate. We're just raising awareness for this really contentious time. So, yeah.
Excellent. Now, Daniel, coming from Texas,
yes,
a big red state,
yes,
40 plus, I think, 40 electoral college votes. You're here in Queens, which we like to call the world's borough.
Yes.
Compare and contrast it for me, if you can. You know, what's it like in Texas? What's it like here in Queens?
Right. I think Queens and New York in general and the 5 boroughs, definitely a lot more probably outspoken on politics than it is in Texas. You know, I live in Dallas, Dallas proper, and, you know, all those major big cities around Texas do lean pretty blue. So it honestly depends, but I think the political climate here is great. You know, people are very outspoken. I love hearing everyone's different opinions. You know, at St. John's, it's a pretty diverse campus.
Absolutely.
You know, we're in between the 5 boroughs and in the middle of Long Island as well. So you get a lot of different beliefs, you know, people, different races, creed, things like that. So, yeah.
Excellent. Now, what attracted you to come from Texas to spend 4 years in New York?
Right. So I love New York. New York City is my favorite city in the world. I wanted a taste of something new, and I felt that New York City and Queens could provide that for me. You know, St. John's gives me that campus feel so that I'm used to coming from the South and having a campus like that. But it's such a diverse campus. I mean, where I grew up in Dallas, it's not diverse. I'll be completely honest with you. It's not very diverse, and I just wanted something new. Get out of my comfort zone, and I really felt that I get that here at St. John's, and I might be able to thrive as well. So,
excellent. Yeah. Now you're finishing in 4 years, which is always the goal. What's the next step for Daniel Sanchez?
The plan is to take a year off to work and then apply to law schools. Really interested in constitutional law, things like that. So that was kind of one of my biggest things when I was thinking about voting for this election is the Constitution and moving forward with that. So,
excellent. Yeah. Now let's talk about your voting experience. What was it like? How did you vote?
Yes, so I voted by mail, and that was an interesting process. I had never done that in the past. I'd been home for elections. You know, it happened to fall during like a fall break or something like that. So I'd vote when I was home. I voted in the last midterms when I was home. So it was a different process this year. I think they've definitely tightened things up a little bit since the last election.
Right.
So it was definitely different. So, yeah.
Okay.
Daniel,
now, as someone who's campaigned for a position?
Yes.
Okay, we have a question. Go ahead.
Daniel, if I can interrupt. Sorry, Brian. You're a young leader on the St. John's campus. Why was it so important for you to get involved in student government there?
So you're a young leader. Why was it important for you to get involved in student government?
Right. So, you know, coming from Dallas and just coming from far away, St. John's is a pretty big commuter school, and just people in general are from New York, and I felt that I had a different perspective that a lot of students here, and you know, other members on my executive board as well are from around the country, and I thought we all brought a really unique, you know, perspective to the school that, you know, hasn't been there in the past. And we wanted to see change on campus. And, you know, I can truly say from the 3 months that we've been doing this, we've seen a lot of change. So, yeah.
And an event like tonight is
yes. You know, we didn't have this in 2020, so it's great to bring this back, and hopefully it continues for midterms and presidential elections in the future. So, yeah.
Daniel, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your help pulling this off.
Of course.
And we're going to talk to another colleague from student government.
Thanks so much, Brian, and thank you to Daniel for your reporting from St. John's. Are you still there, Brian?
Excellent. I'm here, and I'm joined by Ava Wilson.
Yes.
Ava is from a blue state of Maryland.
Yes.
10 electoral college votes. Ava, Secretary of Student Government Incorporated. Tell me a little bit about Maryland politics and your first presidential election. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so this is my first presidential election. It has been amazing, just Gen Z rallying around. You know, Maryland is a blue state, so I wasn't all that, you know, nervous about it. But it being my first presidential election, and, you know, it's a big one. You know, we have a woman running for president as well as a woman of color. So, and she's truly a woman for the people. So for me to be able to cast in my vote, whether that be in the mail or in person, I had to make sure that I got there.
So I want to come back to that, but talk about how you voted. Did you go home to vote? Did you mail? What'd you do?
So this year I submitted a mail-in ballot. So I walked to the post office, made sure I had that stamped and ready to go for this election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to come back to, you talked about this is going to be a historic night, no matter who wins.
Yes.
First woman president, woman of color, as you mentioned. If Donald Trump wins, first president in 100+ years to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. So we're going to make history regardless.
Agreed.
But talk about, as a woman of color, what it meant for you to cast that ballot.
It was truly empowering, you know, seeing that there was a woman on the ticket. That was incredible. You know, for me and for many women and girls and students of color all over the world, it was a moment of a woman fighting for the people. You know, we talk about issues like climate change, social injustice, civil rights, gun safety. Every issue is on the ballot this year, and it's important that students know, it's important that teachers know, parents know that, you know, this is an important race. This is a race for our future, and it's a race for democracy as well. So, yeah.
Now you bring up a good point, because I think some college students don't like talking about politics. And talk about that a little bit and what that's like.
Yeah, so a lot of students, especially my age, like to shy away from the conversation of politics. You know, they're afraid of offending somebody. They're afraid of losing a friend, losing a loved one, or causing controversy. But for someone like me, I love diving into, you know, this very issue of controversy or talking about politics, because talking about politics, I don't see it as just politics. I see it as a right step of changing the world, changing our environment. You know, we have the presidential election, but looking at legislations, you know, our school system, how does that affect students going to school? So it's important. Although we're talking about the presidential election, we're helping students understand that their voice matters, their power matters. So helping students understand that we have to get to the elections to vote.
Excellent. Now, how does student government help you prepare for something like that, for having those conversations? You ran in the campaign, obviously.
Yes,
you're only a junior, so you might have aspirations for another year in student government. Talk about the student government experience.
Yeah, so the student government experience, it's wonderful. We get to meet with administrations, and we also get to meet with the student body to figure out how we can make the campus more inclusive and how we can best represent our student body. We've been tackling things like diversifying food options on campus, helping people see that, you know, the things that influence them are seen on campus. So as Secretary for Student Government, I'm one of the main liaisons for communication. You know, how can we bridge the gap between students on campus and administration? We don't want it to be this wall. We want it to be inviting, you know. So for me to be able to sit in these meetings, it's empowering, because I'm, you know, a beacon for them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you the same question. Why? Yes, please.
This is Gail Lewis in the studio. How are you tonight, Ava?
I'm going to feed
okay,
Ava
you're
the
feeding
question.
Ava, no problem. Ava, you can tell her that I was also involved in student government, so I'm so excited that she is as well. My question is, has she always been civic-minded? And if so or if not, the role that St. John's played in her becoming more or less engaged in civics?
Excellent. So the host back in the studio was also involved in student government and wants to know what attracted you to get involved. And were you always civic-minded, or was this something that was cultivated here at St. John's?
Yeah, over the years, I have always been super passionate. I work with organizations like UNICEF and Plan USA that really tackle like gender equality, children's rights. So once I realized my why, which was my why for the people, you know, I'm a strong believer of ensuring that every space that you're in, people not only feel heard, but they feel like, oh, somebody cares about who I am as a person and my values. So I fell into student government because it led me to a place of how can I advocate for people around me.
Excellent. Excellent. And again, why?
Major, and what does she want to be when she grows up?
Ava, what is your major, and what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, so my major is interdisciplinary business, and I have hopes to go to law school. I want to study constitutional law, be a legal advisor, and just continue the great work of nonprofit and just be in the community.
And do you want to stay in New York? Want to go back to Bowie, Maryland, or?
I'm looking at both my options, so being either close to D.C. or seeing, where New York takes me as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, you mentioned to me, I think you were involved in some campaigns over the summer. You did some political activity?
Yes. So this past summer, I had the amazing opportunity to work with Angela Alsobrook. She's running for Senate back in Maryland, so that was amazing as well. Another Black woman who is just a trailblazer. So for me to be able to canvass for the first time, phone bake for the first time, it was amazing.
Excellent. Yeah. Ava, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank
you for your work with student government, and who knows, maybe we'll see you back here next year.
Yes,
and a different election night. Remember that name, Ava Wilson. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tom, I don't know if you've noticed what I've noticed, and I'm sure Brian sees it as well. He is at St. John's every day, but the students seem so engaged with St. John's, so engaged with the campus, and so engaged with the greater community as well.
Yeah, I was fascinated by both Ava and Daniel are both people of color. They're both from out of town, and they're here in Queens, which is a wonderful thing. We're going to go back to Brian with another student, it looks like. Brian, please.
Tom, we're getting really hyper local now. I'm joined by Julia Gonçalves. Julia literally is just a few blocks from the Queens campus. She is a second generation St. John's student. Her mom has 2 degrees, comes from a great St. John's family. Julia is a government and politics major. She's in her 2nd year here, but she came in with so much high school credit from Archbishop Malloy. She's technically a junior. Julia.
Yes.
Tell me about your Election Day experience.
I had a great time. Jamaica, Queens, born and raised, so I had the opportunity to early vote here at St. John's Law. Very smooth experience, kindest workers, and a really nice first presidential election. Was really happy.
Excellent. So you voted early.
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
Cut the line. Shorter line. It was real simple and smooth, and I got to do it on Halloween, so I got a nice little Halloween-themed voting sticker. Extra bonus.
Excellent. Excellent. So Julia's a government and politics major, and she's been very involved, not just on campus, but also in the local community. Talk about some of the internships you've experienced and what it was like voting for someone today who you interned for.
Yes, absolutely. So I had the opportunity to intern with both Grace Meng and David Weprin, and I was thankful enough to be able to actually vote for Assemblyman David Weprin. He was on my ballot, and honestly, it's really nice knowing the staffers that I'm voting for. I was able to meet them and get to know them while I interned there, and I'm really proud of that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Now, Julia, part of your global St. John's experience, you're going to be going abroad next semester. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm very excited. My minor is French, and I come from an immigrant family, so languages has been part of my life, and I wanted to get to explore that abroad on the St. John's campuses. So I'll be taking part in the Western Europe program, going to Limerick, Ireland, Rome, Italy, and Paris, France.
Tom, it's not study abroad like you used to know it, huh?
Absolutely. What a great opportunity. And she goes all the way overseas, and she's got all that culture and that diversity right here from Queens. So we wish her the best in her future endeavors, and make sure you stay in Queens when you graduate and help us grow the borough.
Julia, I love that you...
Tom Gret.
I'm sorry, I love that you're from Archbishop Malloy. I'm going to forgive you. I went to Mary Lewis.
She went to Mary Lewis, our host in the studio.
Wow.
So we're going to give you a pass on that.
My sister went there, don't worry.
Okay.
All right, so you got a
she's in the
sister who went to
family.
Mary Lewis, so it's all good. It's all good. We're keeping it local in Queens, but it just demonstrates, we attract students from around the corner, literally like Julia, around the world, around the country, and then we try to send them out and send them abroad with those Queens values that they learn. And Tom, you know this, we call Queens the world's borough. Nothing like sending students out into the world with that Queens experience and that Queens DNA in them.
Absolutely. I don't want to burn our powder here, but we're going to be announcing soon our 7th tech incubator in Queens County will be hopefully within the Vic at St. John's University. We're very, very excited to work with you folks, and just another way we're going to make sure that young people who graduate from St. John's and Queens can stay, grow, and prosper, live, work, and play right there in Queens. We'll have a more formal announcement in the weeks to come, but Brian, thanks for the intros to that team over there, and give my best to those folks at the Vic. as well as Father Shanley.
Absolutely, absolutely. Will do, Tom. Julia, last thought. If you had an audience with the president-elect, what would you say?
I would probably be starstruck, so I'd keep it simple and say it's a pleasure to meet you.
There you go. Good answer. Julia, thanks for your time. Thanks for all you do, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Brian, thanks for all you're doing over there at St. John's, and thanks for bringing those students up.
And we have one more, and it's going to be a good conversation because I'm joined by Olivia Seaman. Olivia is the editor-in-chief of The Torch, which is the independent school newspaper here at St. John's. Comes from the swing state of Pennsylvania. She's a senior. She's a journalism major. Olivia, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So talk about your Election Day experience.
My Election Day experience, I actually voted by absentee ballot. So I got it last week. I filled it out last week, and I sent it in, and it was received just a few days ago. So I got to wear my I voted sticker today. So it was really exciting. It was my first presidential election that I ever got to vote in. So it felt super exciting.
Excellent. Now, Olivia, you lead the student newspaper here on campus, and something that we've seen this election has been the lack of endorsements by major newspapers, and particularly the Washington Post. Now, The Torch doesn't make endorsements, last time I checked.
Don't.
But what does that mean for you as a journalism major? What does it mean, for the role of newspapers in the future?
Yeah, exactly. In the past, we've seen a lot of these endorsements, like the Washington Post deciding to not endorse anymore, and newspapers are supposed to be independent, and these endorsements are usually led by the opinion team, so it's really like an independent opinion by them. And what we're seeing is that they're not endorsing any candidates, which kind of worries me as a journalist, especially when I lead an independent newspaper, that these endorsements are being blocked by their different ownings by corporations. So it's really concerning to see that these news organizations, especially owned by big corporate entities, that are kind of silencing the voices of their opinion teams. It's really disheartening to see.
Now, The Torch has done some coverage of the election. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we've done a lot of things to cover the election. Our opinion team has been really great in covering different opinion stories on both sides of the aisle. Our news team has been especially great. We recently conducted a survey where we spoke to 100 St. John's students and see how they went. We surveyed them from each of their colleges, each of their majors. So it was really cool to see. I was really proud of our coverage on that.
Talk about that a little bit more, because I was kind of surprised by the survey results. It was kind of close.
Yeah, the surveys were very, almost even. I think it was just about a 6-point difference of students favoring Kamala Harris rather than Donald Trump. But what I thought was equally or even more interesting was that we surveyed students from every single college represented at the university, and it was really cool to look at the trends, like business students compared to students at the Collins College of Professional Studies. So it was really interesting for us to do that, and we got a lot of great feedback from different Torch alums and different readers. So that was one of my favorite pieces that we've done this season.
Now, there was another column I remember reading about finding love with someone who is the political opposite of you. So you want to talk about that?
Yes, our features editor, Olivia Rainston, did that. I really liked that article because it's something that we see a lot in modern day culture, especially in today's age where everything is very even on opposite sides of the aisle. So it's definitely something that you really have to navigate during this election season. So it was nice to kind of speak to people who were kind of feeling these different ways, talk about different hypotheticals, and just get some good advice on how to kind of deal with that.
Now, I want to stick to that idea for a moment, because so much of our society, it's this or that. It's blue or red.
Yes.
It's Democrat or Republican. How do you find getting along with someone who's different political opinions? Is it something that you can master? Does it come natural? Is there something you struggle with, or your peers? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, something especially great, and I've kind of seen it in our newsroom, that we all believe different things. We all have different views, and you kind of see that at St. John's too. You know, Daniel was saying earlier that we are a diverse campus, which we obviously are. So you're going to see people from all different sides of the political spectrum, and it's just having conversations. You know, we do it a lot in our newsroom all the time when we're pitching stories, talking about stories. We talk about our different views, and I do it a lot with my friends and peers as well. We have conversations, and if we don't agree on the same things, we can agree to disagree, yes, but it's not something that obviously you shouldn't end a friendship over that, but it's definitely something that you can talk with people over and just have thoughtful conversations.
I agree, and I hope that more people think like that. Please.
Olivia, it sounds like your St. John's experience has been very positive so far. I'm wondering how the facilities at St. John's have helped you blossom as a young journalist. That's my first question. And second question, there's always a follow-up. I'm a journalist too. So first question, how has St. John's facilities helped you become a better journalist? And second, do you see yourself as a political journalist one day?
All right, so the questions from the studio is twofold. One, if you could talk about the facilities at St. John's and how they've helped you. And I'm thinking in particular of the sweet space that the office, that the Torch has. And then the second question was, do you see yourself as a future, as a political journalist, or what kind of journalism do you want to practice?
Yeah, so first I'll talk about our spaces. We have been lucky to be afforded with a beautiful office. It's in the bottom of one of our residence halls, and we have a lot of different desk spaces and computers. We have Mac computers, and that's where we do our bi-monthly full issues. So if you want to read that, you can catch that. We also, just kind of a great place for us to have meetings and talk with writers and work with our teams, and we've been afforded a really great space. We're really lucky to have that space, and kind of going into my future, I want to pursue a lot of different things. I don't have time to do every single one of them, but I would really love to work in political communications, like working for campaigns, doing communications, things like that. I'd also still like to do political journalism on the side as well. It really just kind of depends where everything plays out, but doing political communication is something that I'm really interested in.
Do you want to stay in New York?
Yes, of course. I would love to stay in New York City.
So the recurring pattern is come to Queens, come to St. John's, because you want to be in New York, and then you want to stay, yes? Now, I want to bring back to home, because you're from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
All eyes are on Pennsylvania tonight and probably tomorrow.
Yes.
They're still counting. What is it like coming from a swing state and all the attention that you get? And talk a little bit about Pennsylvania politics.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm from Northampton County, so it's definitely one that you're going to see on all the magic boards throughout the night. They're going to do Northampton and Lehigh County, so that's where I'm from. And it's very, very flip-floppy. There's a lot of people who believe different things there. You'll see signs from different sides of the parties. What I found is sometimes it can be a little divisive at times, but obviously it's important to be respectful, but there's really like a lot of different things. You'll see the candidates coming to both our nearest city, Allentown. They were just there last week and this week, so it's very interesting coming from a swing state where it can really go anyway.
Excellent. Olivia, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
I want to wish you good luck with your coverage.
Thank you.
As you cover not just what's going on here at St. John's, but what's going on around the country, around the world. And Queens, this is it. I mean, the world's borough, and we're right here watching. All eyes are on the American election here, but here in Queens, we're watching it as well. So I want to thank you all at Qptv and throw it back to the studio.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Olivia and Ava as well, and Julia, for your reporting live from St. John's. Tom, something that Olivia just said that struck with me, is that she said she came to New York to study journalism at St. John's, and she's loving it. She's having the time of her life, living her best life at St. John's, obviously on their campus, which is beautiful here in Queens. But also she said something that kind of reminded me about what you were talking about earlier. She said she came to St. John's and she wants to stay in New York City because of the jobs.
Absolutely. It's one of those things she also mentioned about getting along and not fighting. We talk about all the time about why there's relative little strife in our county and in our borough. And I've always said that with that melting pot that we have, people are just too busy making a living, trying to live the American dream. And I joke a lot about seeing somebody in a foreign dress that's walking around the city that might have been born overseas but's raising their family here, and seeing that kid in a Met hat being pulled by their mom across the street, and seeing them become assimilated to America, and especially assimilated to Queens, and kind of drinking that Kool-Aid about what makes America great. My grandparents both came over on boats. These folks today, for the most part, come to JFK going across the tarmac. It's quite a combination of those things, but it's great to have, especially the young people, want to stay. We have 7 colleges and universities in Queens County with 100,000 students, and last count, 48% of those kids were foreign born. We want them to grow, learn, be educated, and mostly stay in Queens. I look at my job and the job of our members is to have opportunities so they can stay and not go anywhere else.
Yeah, so that they can grow here, they can have their families here, and a next generation of Queens people.
Absolutely, no question, no question.
Absolutely. So just what she said, absolutely correlated with all of the work that you guys are doing at the Queens Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, absolutely.
And just, it seems that synergy, just one thing into the next. And I did not know that statistic about Queens colleges and universities.
Yeah,
How many again?
48% foreign born of around 100,000 matriculated students in the county. It grows and it ebbs and flows, but it's a great stat. It's a great sign of our future. And again, we want those kids to get educated, ones that might do tech careers. Don't go to Austin, don't go to Boston, don't go to California. Stay here. Stay here and grow and learn. Places like Queens College and St. John's now have these facilities. Places like Plaza College and Vaughn College, they're really, really doing some cutting edge stuff. Vaughn College has got a great aviation program with those drones technology going on there. It's remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many exciting things going on in Queens. And one school that you did not mention, of course, Queensboro Community College.
Absolutely, right in
CUNY's
Bayside.
finest. We are doing some really amazing things in Queens as well.
Yes, I know your president's been there, I'm going to say, for 4 years. We had occasion to meet and operate together. She's wonderful. But again, I think it's one of those things where we do have different strokes for different folks. Folks that might want to have an education at St. John's or Queensboro. We're diverse in our areas of where we are. We are the largest geographic borough. Again, we're from the Rockaways up north to Little Neck and from Long Island City all the way out to the Nassau County border, and we certainly have a plethora of colleges with various degrees.
And of course, let's not forget the fact that we've got one international and another airport right in our borough as well. All the other boroughs are jealous. So speaking of what people are thinking, someone who's thinking on a community level is Milani Shaw. She's a community activist, and she's joining us this evening. Good evening.
Hello, Milani.
Hi. How are you this evening?
Can you hear us, Milani?
Milani? I think she's having a little trouble with her
we'll let John and the
connection.
team figure out some of those tech difficulties. But in the meantime, some of the things we were talking about regarding education, it is so important. Queens has also got some other cool schools on the high school side. Aviation tech is a remarkable place.
And
energy tech.
Aviation has had just a long history of being just an amazing school, an amazing public option right here in our borough.
And when you think about the fact that we do have those two airports verging on $30 billion of investment, I love the fact that Joe Biden 7 or 8 years ago said that LaGuardia was a third world airport. And now, thanks to the Port Authority and Delta and all the players over there, now it's been rated #1 in the world. It's such a great source of pride and inspiration for folks that we can do these things if people put their minds to it and get it done. And I love the fact that our students in those colleges and the high schools have opportunities for a career path right here, not going far away, but right here in our own backyard.
Absolutely. And I love that we have our own story of going from worst to first. I mean, we've had the Mets. Okay, they were a little disappointing, but we forgive them. We'll try again next year.
Absolutely.
We're Mets fans, so we're loyal. But we also have stories like LaGuardia Airport that literally went from worst to first. Right?
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker first and foremost, and I love my peers and my friends in the other boroughs, in the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. But at the end of the day, we're very, very proud. Queens is like that underdog borough, right? Whether it was the Mets from many, many years ago, kind of like the Avis, we try harder. That was an old adage for those of you of a certain age. We do try harder and we excel, but we also fly under the radar. We're not a lot of braggadocio there. We work really, really hard at putting food on the table and growing our businesses and growing our families, and as importantly, educating our families. And I think going back to politics and our electeds, we do need electeds, and I think for the most part we have them, that can understand and appreciate that. So as they develop laws and talents and different regulations, they understand that we need to have freedom to be able to grow and do our businesses with limited government regulation, but also be able to succeed within our own. Okay, so I think we're back with Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. Good evening. Thanks for joining
Good
us on
evening. How are
Qptv
you?
Live.
Yes, thank you. And good to see Tom. I just met him only a couple of days ago when we were at the stadium.
I don't think we're able to hear her right now, John. So if we can.
So I've got Melanie. Do you
I don't have her, but please continue.
So, Melanie, you're a community activist right here in Queens. What have you been hearing this evening and over the last couple of weeks are the most important issues in your community?
Well, basically, you know, I've been a community liaison for Councilmember Valon as a volunteer for over the past 8 years. And I'm VP of the club and with Center for the Women as well. I think what concerns mostly everyone is, I would say, a woman's right to choose. Immigration, the economy, whether, you know, the current inflation that's happening. So these issues do come up. You would hear it, you know, the cost of living, safety.
And you've heard all of those in your community, in the way that you've been out in the community, and these are the most important things that you've been hearing. So what's your role? What have you been doing to help people get out and vote, to get them more civically engaged?
So I grew up where my mom taught me of helping your neighbor. And this is one of the things that, being an educator myself, I was a teacher as well. So my role, I think, is giving back, helping people. And the main thing during election was always like, go out to vote. Your voice is what matters. I think that's so important because some of the communities, you know, we found that they wouldn't be coming out to vote. And I think all of us working together, and I think it's great. Most of Queens, and most of New York City, everybody's concern is how are we going to motivate people to come out and cast their ballot.
And as a fellow teacher myself, I understand the struggle, but how do you personally impart upon your students the importance of being civically engaged in their own lives?
Yeah. I think civic engagement is important. In fact, I'm part of an organization called Felicia's Promise, where we train and teach young girls, help young girls to, we have workshops also. And one of the things we were focusing on during this election was making sure they know your vote matters, that you should come out to vote. And I think same thing with most of the community, most of my friends, most of the South Asian community, everybody who I knew I could reach out and say, please go out and vote, do early voting. Go in the line. Even if you don't get to the early voting, you get it in, please go out, but do that vote. Register to vote also is very important. Some people may not have registered.
So thanks so much, Melanie, for joining us. We're having a little bit of an audio problem, so we'll come back to you. And thanks so much for giving us your experience as a community activist and, of course, with the next generation of voters as well. So, Tom, we were just talking about the most important issue there. And we were talking to Melania as well. And so now maybe we can take a break and think about our social media. As you know, you can reach out to us at Qptv on Instagram and, of course, on YouTube and on Facebook as well. And if we have Hannah Chow, if she's available, we can go to her and get an update on our social media. Hannah, are you there? Okay, I do see she's in the studio.
Hello, Hannah. She's our influencer. Hello.
She is an influencer extraordinaire, and she's been helping us out with our social media this evening. So what's going on with social media tonight?
Yes, so I'm looking at a social listening on...
I don't know if she can hear us.
Yes.
Hello, Hannah. She's our influencer.
Hello.
So what's going on with social media?
Yes. So the social media that I'm doing social listening.
I don't know if she can hear. Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Do you have an update for us?
Yes. Great. Yes, absolutely. So I can share my screen if you can see it. That we can see the data from October 30th to today, November the 5th, that for the hashtag election 2024, we have 4.7K results. And yes, absolutely. Great. And then we can see the election day is the next biggest results, and Trump 2024, mega votes. And if we see the top themes from this past 7 days, we can see election Trump vote are the top themes that Trump turns out to be 44.6% of the results. And then if we look at some the emojis that we can see the overall people, what people are sharing on social media, we see US flag is the number one, the biggest, the bigger shared is the more results. And we have this, and love, and blessings, the symbol for US, and what is, we can look into it to see what people are actually talking about.
Hannah, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
So what is the most vibrant right now based upon what you're working on? What social media platform itself has the most views, the most hits?
Yeah, so from what we see, X is the most populated platform for people to share their opinions on the votes. And
all right, Hina, so we're going to come back to you for another update in just a few moments. Thank you so much for keeping us updated on what's going on social media. And hey, Tom, where can people follow you in the chamber on social media?
So we've got a number of channels. We just hired an influencer, and we actually have 2 of them now. Franchette and Kirsty are doing a great job. Shout out to those 2. But we're on LinkedIn, which is my favorite because it's all about business. But I've learned old dogs can be taught new tricks. So beyond LinkedIn and Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're doing TikTok work. We're kind of everywhere. And so we've really increased it. We're always trying to do better amongst the other 4 chambers in the great city of New York in healthy competition. But we really believe as we attract more and more young people to our chamber for activities and events, we do like over 320 mostly complimentary events every year. We want the world to see it. We want to highlight our members, but we're growing by leaps and bounds in that way. And our team of Franchette, RJ, and Kirsty are doing a great job. So my hat's off to them.
So you guys are on social media, so you've got your ear to the ground and you know what people are talking about on the street. And that brings us to our next segment. What's the most important issue? What Queens thinks. These are segments where we asked regular everyday Queens people what's on their mind. So let's watch the first one.
The most pressing issue for me in the election is probably the economy or inflation.
I think the major issue for me is probably which candidate handles the Palestine conflict better, which I feel like is one of the biggest problems is that with our country is that we're focusing so much on a foreign nation that doesn't have anything to do with our policies, and we actively fund basically funding the genocide. So I think whichever candidate shows they have more loyalty to America to me than they do towards a foreign country.
They need to focus more in the safety of everybody, because now is different people coming in this country now, and I think the city and the country go out of control.
I think the major issue for me would be climate change. I think it's very important for politicians to deal with this issue because it's affecting us right now, and it will affect future generations. So it's the #1 issue that has to be taken care of.
Right now, actually, it's the country getting together from both sides and stop the nonsense.
I think the most pressing issue would be stop sending money to Israel for bombs. Yeah, that's the most pressing issue.
The most pressing issue to me is I feel like whoever we vote for, we're just going to get the same outcome.
Right now, my personal issue is just to
Kamala will win this election?
The main important thing for me in this election is social issues. So equality for everybody, housing, for poor people, I think my biggest concern is just all of the social injustices that we're facing right now.
The most pressing thing for me in this upcoming election is the cost of goods, the price of rent, and also this mass migrant problem.
The back and forth with the presidents, the people that want to be president. So the back and forth issues, everybody downplaying one another. It's all about who can really, stand up and take on the problems of the country.
I'd like the candidates to address cost of living increases. I think that's very important. And I think there are international concerns and climate issues that are also important. But for me personally, cost of living is probably the most important issue.
I think the president should treat everyone equal. So it doesn't matter if they are black or white. So in the United States, everyone should be equal and should have equal rights and equal opportunities to live.
What about the poor, the suffering, the meek, and the weak? What about those people? What can we do to improve their lives?
I would definitely say, the economy.
Is if we are to believe the Republicans, then, and we have to take them at their word, they're going to change the way our country operates, and it will be much more like a possible dictatorship.
Freeing Palestine and ending the genocide on Gaza.
I think there's two, and I think they're shoulder to shoulder, human rights and the environment. If we don't have either one of those or both, I don't care how big your gun is. You lose. We lose. Without the environment, without the planet, without human rights.
I think the most pressing issue is the constant bad-mouthing between the two parties. It is my firm wish that once this is past us, we could adopt the same principle that UK has, which is the loyal opposition, not those people. Because when we have to come together after 9/11 or war, we do. So it's not like we aren't one country, and we really don't need this much division.
And everything went up, everything, the food. So that's the most important thing for me. Houses are very expensive.
So that was our most important issue. We heard a lot of issues, the division in the country right now, social issues, the cost of goods, the cost of services, the cost of living, the cost of rent, all of these things. The environment, of course, that was the first thing that was mentioned, and our What Queens Thinks is the most important issue. A lot of these issues, Tom, to me, it seems like the environment, the social issues, the goods not being in stores, the price of goods, the price of services, a lot of it comes down to a lot of the work that you do.
What I took from that conversation was very, very unique in that it showed the diversity of our borough and the diversity of what people think. Some folks didn't even mention the economy. They were worried more about things like global climate change and so on. Other people talked about inflation. But again, Queens is known different strokes for different folks, and it certainly showed with that man and woman on the street interview.
Absolutely. And we did see that the environment was so important in so many different ways. So some people talked about air pollution, other people talked about recycling, just however you envision environment and however you vision that for your children's future.
Absolutely.
We saw that in there.
It showed loud and clear. We saw it. We saw it in action and it was also kind of remarkable to see all those different faces. It's kind of neat. I recognized 4 or 5 faces. So it was kind of nice to see them. They're all over the borough, different accents, different nationalities, but it was a great, I think, microcosm of what makes Queens, Queens.
Yeah, and what the most important issue is
Absolutely.
to different people in our very alike and very not alike borough. And speaking of our borough is held together by a system of different district leaders. And one of the district leaders who is joining us tonight is Rosalind Spigner. Good evening, Roz.
Good evening, Gail. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio tonight for Election Night 2024 Live. You are a Delta. You are a figure in the community, a stalwart in the community, a cornerstone of the community, a district leader. So you really have your ear to the ground. So tell us, Roz, we just came off of a segment of the most important issue in Queens. In your experience as a district leader, what's the most important issue in your district?
Quality of life. We're homeowners, and it's very important for us to be happy in our homes and our neighborhoods. Queens is a borough of neighborhoods, and we're very proud of that as Queensites. And so that is what is most important to us.
What are some of the things right now, Ms. Spigner, that's hurting the quality of life in your particular area and your particular neighborhood?
Well, some of the things that hurts quality of life have to do with sanitation, like who is responsible for what, who's responsible for making sure that the mediums are cleaned up, making sure that the parks, anything that belongs to the parks department. And in many cases, sometimes you don't know who to reach out to. Sometimes you do, and you reach out, to 311. This is what we use here in New York. And they're like, well, this is not my responsibility. It's the sanitation, or it's the parks, or it's the whatever. So that's an issue that is a concern. Abandoned vehicles, trucks parked around the neighborhood. So those are some of the things that I really think hurts the quality of life.
It seems to me that some of those things that were around in the bad old days are kind of coming back, which is not a good sign. The mayor constantly talks about the numbers of crime, bad crime numbers dropping and so on. But when it comes to that perception, right, it's a problem for the neighborhoods throughout Queens County and frankly throughout the rest of the city. It seems to me like after the COVID, resources across the board are strained, right? You can't find the right person to call, as you mentioned. 311 is probably overburdened. But what are some of the other things in your area that you think are problems that government and our elected leaders need to work on fixing?
Well, I think that is the primary one, because of the fact that people in our community, we work hard. By the time we reach home from being out at work all day, taking our children from here to there, different activities, a lot of us may not have the time to, dial 311 50 times.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's a one-shot deal. You have to, I know that you have to dial 311, then you have to call a city council person, and then you have to call 311 again, and then you have to call the city council person. And I don't necessarily know that it's anyone's fault, except the fault of those individuals that refuse to do their jobs. Mm-hmm. So I think that's who's to blame. It's not necessarily anyone, because you can't make somebody do their job. You have to want to do your job. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where the responsibility lies. People, they want these jobs, and then they don't always do their best with the jobs that they have.
Roz, I love what you said. You set us up for a good question. If we as an electorate are not happy with our electeds, whether it be the President of the United States all the way down to our district leader, which you are, and not saying that we don't love you, because we do, and we feel that you're doing a good job. But if you're not happy with an elected official, as a voter, it is incumbent upon you to cast a vote for someone else. Can you tell us about that, about the role of voters in your community?
So the first thing that I always say, and when I go around and I talk to constituents, I always say that voting is the last step. That's the final step. The first step is to hear out those individuals who want to run for office. That's the first thing. Find out a little bit about them, their background. What have they done? Have they done community work? Or did they just come and say, I want to run for office? What is their proven track record? Then you help, if it's somebody that you are interested in, you help them on the campaign trail. You may help them by, volunteering your services, bringing your friends along to help someone who's a candidate. make the ballot and raise funds. And then after that, you hold them accountable. You have to hold them accountable as a candidate, and you then, once elected, you hold them accountable as an elected official. When they have town halls or they're trying to do things, you can't just criticize them if you don't show up to their meetings, when they're trying to meet with people in the community, when they have rallies or town halls or whatever it is, talks, on certain issues. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to show up, but I want change. So in order for you to have the change that you desire, you have to play a role in it as well. It can't just be them. And then if all of those steps are followed through and that person who's elected still refuses to affect the change that's needed in that community, then you should vote them out.
And you should be that engaged electorate and vote them out.
Engaged electorate, not an ignorant electorate, but an engaged electorate. You vote them. You not that you necessarily are rallying against them, but you don't have to cast your vote for someone that doesn't pay you attention. It doesn't pay attention to the needs in your community.
Sounds like most of the things that Roz said all revolve around activism and being off the couch, out in the street, at your community hall, and being part of the process to fix the problem and not be part of the problem. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Roz. Thank you so much. Roz said a lot. She talked about the engagement in our communities, and something that a lot of our community is engaged in right now is the environment. We heard that a little bit earlier. So let's go to another episode, another issue of the most important issue about the environment.
I'm a lover of nature. I love nature. I love seeing it thrive, grow, evolve. And then, climate change happens, and it concerns me on how it affects, human beings itself. Any changes, I guess, as typical as I can put it, less fossil fuels, more solar energy.
I think it's very, very important for politicians to deal with this issue because it's affecting us right now, and it will affect future generations. So it's the number one issue that has to be taken care of.
Well, we see it now. So the weather is hot and humid today in October, or almost October. And so I am concerned about just in general, the weather patterns being different, much more extreme rains. Yeah, so I think it's very important for our government to deal with climate change now. And really they're already behind. And the more we can do to try to manage it, I think we just have to be smarter on how to deal with it, because I think we come up with something that sounds, very easy to do, and then not realizing the entire life cycle of what would need to happen in order to impact climate change.
Government dealing with it is a joke. All governments. Nobody deals with it again. There it is as a conversation and talking points for every politician that stands in front of a screen and tells you what they're going to do on climate change.
Across New York, there have been effects of climate change. Our subway systems continually get flooded during big rains. I hear the celebrities, they talk about, climate change is a big deal, this and that, yet they have their private jets and they're flying all over the place. Does that not count? Right? It's only what we do that counts. We have to do this, but they could take their jet to go one place to another. Everyone has to work on that.
Climate change is very important to me. I hope that it's not too late to make the changes that we should have been making. Unfortunately, some past people in office have reversed some of the progress we were making. So I hope to see a change. I know I probably won't see a lot of these effects in my lifetime, but for the future of this planet and for the future of the people that are coming into it, I hope that we can find a solution.
Human beings, they don't care. Straight, the word that they don't care. Few people, they care and they try to do as much as for everybody. But if everybody do a little, you could be better this world. But nobody cares.
There are things that we can do. There's things that are happening. And we really need to realize that this planet This is all we got. And whatever happens, the planet will always be here, whether we're here or not.
This earth, this whole earth, is our blanket, is our bed. You know how we take care of our bed? That's the earth. All of us, no matter belief system, no matter how rich you are, we have to respect the earth. The climate change is all of us, not president, all of us.
Oh, they dealing with it. They gonna deal with it however they want to deal with it. It don't matter what I say.
I think whatever president is in power needs to enact a new Green Deal and come at these corporations that are these top 100 corporations that are making up 70% of all of our emissions.
We got to work together, and we haven't been doing that.
Well, I think there are bigger issues, but yes, climate change is one of them as well. It's like keep doing your part, keeping your environment clean, recycling, keeping the ocean clean, being sustainable, and hopefully something will come about.
So many issues with the environment that were just discussed in that segment. We had the carbon footprint, rain issues, extremes in the environment. It reminds me a lot about the incubator programs that we have right here in Queens. We've got STEM education so that the next generation of scientists, the next generation of inventors can stay here in Queens, can invent here in Queens, and can get jobs and propagate and help the environment right here in Queens. It reminds me of the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. We're very, very proud of the fact of the 15 or so companies in those 6, soon to be 7 incubators all over the borough. First one was in Jamaica. We put a stake in the ground there. We're also in the Rockaways. We're in Queens College, soon to be St. John's, Metropolitan Avenue in Forest Hills, Long Island City, in East Elmhurst, in our home office at the Boulevard Corporate Center. But those 15 companies, I'm really, really proud of this. Our Queens Tech Council, which is made up of Amazon, Google, you name the tech company, the major, 70% minority women-owned companies in those incubators.
So all the great incubator work that we're doing right here in Queens, I love that. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
And let's segue into someone else who is an incubator in his own right. He is an attorney, and he's also district manager of Community Board 13. Good evening, Mark McMillan. How are you?
I'm fine, Gail. How are you?
I am well. Thanks so much for joining us on Qptv Election Night 2024 Live. Your thoughts, your election experience. We'll start there, Mark.
Oh, it's stressful. This is a very difficult election. We don't know what's going to go on, but I feel like it's going to work out. Kamala's done hard work. She's met the people, and I think people are a little concerned about democracy and the direction of the country. And most importantly, I think they want a leader who has character, and I think that's what they're going to eventually end up voting for.
Mark, I'm a pretty busy guy out across the borough. I see you all the time. It's really, really nice to see you here in studio for this night. When you're out knocking on doors, what are some of the basic issues that affect the area that you live in Queens and around the borough that you think are important?
Housing. People are very concerned about housing, and in a way that you might not really think about. People, I know that there are plans to build more housing, but a lot of people move out to Queens, Southeast Queens, Eastern Queens, because they want to have more space. They want to have trees. They want to have a backyard. And it seems like there are initiatives out there that want to disturb their neighborhoods. So that's one of the huge issues that we have right now. Also in my district, we have a HERC, and immigration is a big thing when you have people who walked across the border, who are living in a tent, and people are concerned about their safety.
Mark, for people who do not know, what is a HERC and where is it in the community?
A HERC is a tent for migrants, and they give them housing, a place to sleep, a place to shower. And the HERC in our Queens district is on the Creedmoor campus.
And how have you seen that HERC affect the local area?
Well, people are concerned because the migrants don't have anything to do all day. They sit outside on Hillside Avenue. They'll walk around and collect bottles so they can have a little money. And some of them have bicycles, and they park the bikes. They go to the playground across the street. They deliver food. In fact, funny story, I guess it's not really funny, there was a guy who was using his GPS on his phone. He got on his bike and got on the Cross Island. not a very nice thing to happen.
No, and I think part of the challenge there is that the best intentions of the mayor and those in leadership positions in the city didn't really think through the issues. What did you expect those individuals, whether they're at Floyd Bennett Field, whether they were on Randall's Island, whether they're over there off of Hillside Avenue, what did you expect those people to do, right? There's certain parts of our city that could certainly use some spiffing up and some cleanup. I'm talking about our highways and our byways. You know, maybe there's a lot of political aspects to that, but to put those people that we've taken in situations where they can't make any money really kind of confounds many, many people.
Well, the difficulty, Tom, is a lot of our budget now goes to maintaining people who live here, and we're just talking about single men in Queens. They have families who live in the different hotels around the city. And to give you an example of what happened this year was a lot of people complaining about the growth on center medians, but sanitation didn't have money budgeted for that because we have to take the money and serve people who've just come to our city.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, you're thinking that this is one of the most important issues for voters this time around?
Well, yeah, people are concerned because our tax dollars are supporting people who just came to the city by bus. Our tax dollars are going to create things that we just don't know what's going to happen, and people don't feel like they're getting the city services that they're paying for. It's expensive to live in New York, and we pay a lot of taxes, and we want to feel like we can get the services that we need. Police force is down in terms of numbers, and we just want to be able to enjoy the playgrounds. And if the money isn't there for people that they're used to having, they're really concerned. Maybe not in tonight's election, because today's election is with the state and the federal government, but definitely next year when we start to deal with city council and the mayor.
And Mark, before we let you go, your voting experience this time, did you vote by mail? Did you vote in person, early, on the date? How did it work for you?
I voted early. I advise everybody to do that. I walked in. I was able to talk to the people who were working there. They were very nice. They were so nice they gave me 4 of those pens. They were trying to get rid of the pens. But I encourage everybody, vote early. You don't have to stand online. I know a lot of people want to feel like they're voting on election day, and that's really nice. But if you don't have time, like I don't have time, vote early, and it makes a whole lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I happened for the very first time voted on Sunday at the local library. It was effortless. It was easy in its simplicity, and I think it's the wave of the future. I intend to always vote early in the future, but it also needs to be something that we have to bake into our civic life. You want to make change. You can't stand on the sidelines. You got to make your voice heard. Mark,
absolutely.
Thank
absolutely,
you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark. A lot to unpack again from Mark McMillan, district
Absolutely.
manager and attorney.
Absolutely. He knows his stuff. I know he has his boots on the ground. Like I said, I see him all around the area there in that part of Queens, and the issues he brought up are real, and we can't run away from some of those issues about the migrant crisis. We can't wish those folks away, and there's got to be a solution, I think, at the state, federal, and city level in no particular order, but it's the reality that we have to face, and we got to fix it. And I do think the most important thing we can do, and maybe the most straightforward, easiest on paper, but hardest political thing to do, is to let them work at some point and go through the process. So all those that follow the rules, follow the laws over the course of years, can feel like the country's doing the right thing by welcoming our migrants, God bless them, but also have a process in place so that they can succeed and prosper.
And just speaking of a local Queens issue, as far as people being housed here in Herx, that particular area where they were housed in, it's a transportation desert, and we like it that way, I know, as Queensites. But as far as that goes, it's just hard for them to get around.
There's a YMCA across the street. Yeah. There's a baseball field across the street. There is no really other transportation. You only see yellows and Ubers there, so you're right.
Yeah.
So transportation's got to be fixed.
And speaking of transport, we can transport ourselves downstairs and get the latest election results. Hey, Cliff, how's it going?
Well, it's going very well. It's still a very, very tight race. A lot of the precincts west of the Mississippi have not reported yet, but most of the voting places on the East Coast have closed at this point. Right now, we are seeing that Kamala Harris has approximately 99 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 188. But the night is still young, and there's still more returns to come in. So we will definitely keep you updated on what those numbers are.
Those swing states that are in play right now, that are west of the Mississippi or further west, based upon time zone differences, where do you sense that things are going to break, and where do you think those states are going to go?
It's a little hard to say. They are truly states that can go either way. The battleground states, as I mentioned earlier, are Nevada and Arizona. We haven't heard from them yet, as well as well, those are the two that are really up for grabs, in addition to Oregon and Washington State and California. The one thing that I do find interesting, it was said that if you win Pennsylvania, then you pretty much have this race in the bag. So they've already put Pennsylvania and Kamala Harris's column. So she pretty much has that state. So even though she's trailing right now, this may change in the next hour or so.
Cliff, you're the expert. I understand they said the same thing about Florida, and it looks like Trump has won Florida, while places like Massachusetts and Maryland have gone to Harris. Any thoughts on the Florida-Pennsylvania conundrum there?
I don't know why. I mean, I'm not too surprised about Florida. I thought that would always fall in the Donald Trump column. Massachusetts, well, you know, it's the Northeast Corridor, which traditionally is Democratic, along with Vermont and New Hampshire and Rhode Island and Connecticut. So I don't think there's a big surprise in terms of the Northeast.
Thanks so much for the update, Cliff. We're going to check back in with you real soon. So far, it's looking like it could be anyone's game. And speaking of anyone's game, I've got to say goodnight to the best game in town.
Wow.
That's Tom Gresh.
Did we have fun?
We did. We
kind
had
of almost a redo of 2016, a nail biter. Till when? Who knows? But it's been a pleasure being with you again, Gail Lewis. Thanks so much for the great crew and team at Qptv. We'll see you at our next events. You guys always follow our events. And thanks to our viewers and those that signed in and logged in, friends and family of both Gail and myself. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
And thank you, Tom, for sitting in with me. I appreciate it. And one more time before you leave, big up the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much. QueensChamber.org is our website. We're growing in leaps and bounds. We're following the trajectory of Queens by business, not-for-profits, and cultures. Jump on board. We're doing great.
Thanks so much, Tom. Thanks so much, Tom Gresh, Queens Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with Paul Rodriguez.
The move comes 4 days after her blackface comment that provoked a firestorm.
In an era of media consolidation and globalization, the PEG channels root our media in local communities, in local voices, and that is absolutely indispensable.
A lot of people are able to get job training, information, just from using public access.
This is about the arts. This is about accessibility. This is about transparency.
Great youth media programs giving people second chances in being able to learn new skills.
PEG stations give viewers critical information about their communities and offer an important platform for local residents. PEG channels connect us to our communities, and they enrich our lives every single day of the year. The FCC should work for communities, not powerful cable companies. This battle is a lot like the fight for net neutrality. Net neutrality is really about every voice, no matter how small, being heard. The same is true here with the PEG channels.
The main threat facing media centers nationwide is that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is going to redefine how we receive our funding.
It will impact the people who we're trying to serve.
They were actually paying for us in their cable bill. And now all of a sudden the cable operator is taking their money, then deducting it from us.
They cannot be in a position where they basically force the shuttering of PEG channels all across our country.
We need Congress to tell the FCC that they're out of bounds.
It's pretty clear to me that the FCC is an agency that does the public's will begrudgingly, and it fits and starts.
We're talking about supporting causes, charities, education, youth, seniors, democracy.
This is not a left issue. This is not a right issue. This is an everybody issue.
If you care about protecting local community access television, raise your voices.
Here at Qptv, we pride ourselves on having all points of view, and my next guest brings his own point of view to the set this evening. He is New York State Chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, and he is Paul Rodriguez. Good evening, Paul.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be able to join you tonight. I feel very privileged and honored. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. We love having you here. Yeah. So let's get right into it. In your capacity as chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, what do you do day to day?
Well, our objective is really to try to mobilize the Hispanic Latino community and you know, bring them into not just the Republican Party, but the conservative movement.
So we're going to come right back to you, Paul. We're having a little bit of a mic issue, so we're going to take a quick break and come right back with more Paul Rodriguez.
Just another number, right? Think again. It can mean all sorts of bad things. Swimming is great, but swimming with 130 sharks is a bad idea. 130 is too much of a lot of things, and it's too high for blood pressure. A blood pressure reading of 130 over 80 or higher means you're more likely to have a stroke or heart attack. Visit heart.org/HBP to find out more about controlling your blood pressure.
Did you know that suicide is a serious public health problem? Did you also know that suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 through 14 and 25 through 34?
We exist in a cold, cold world, but it's hot out here. It's the reason why we living in fear. I could die from the poli, that ain't no lie. I done seen death up close with my own eyes. Try to say goodbye, but the spirits still live on. This a cry for help, you can hear it in this song. Better days are coming, cause the sun will still come up. When it's time for you to see me, I'll be there when you run up. Keep running.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Thank you.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to QPTV's Election Night 2024 Live. Joining me on set once again is New York State Chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, Paul Rodriguez. Good evening again, Paul. We've got you all mic'd up. We can hear you this time.
Hello again.
So it's great for you to join us on QPTV Live this evening for the election results and our election special. In your capacity as New York State Chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, what's your day-to-day?
Well, our objective is to really promote policies that comport with the values of the Hispanic Latino community within the United States. and particularly within the context of our conservative traditional values of God, family, and country. And we're part of a national organization that has been, it was founded in the late 60s.
So that's a lot to unpack. Hispanics, would you say are, and I know Hispanics are not a monolith, African American voters are not a monolith. It's hard to speak to any one group like that. But in your experience, as the New York State chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, do you find that Hispanics as a voting bloc vote more conservative or more liberal?
I think that many, first of all, yes, you say we're not a monolith, and you have a combination of those who are fairly new immigrants to the country, those who have been here second and third generations, or also people in sort of the unique situation that I am, which I'm Puerto Rican. So Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. We're sort of straddling two worlds of being Americans, more Americans than obviously the rest of the Latin Americans in that sense, but more Latino than let's say the Anglos, if you will.
Right.
So in terms of the way that I was brought up in particular, you know, I was raised by a single mom who was very apolitical. I think she voted for both Reagan and Clinton.
Okay.
So
she was both sides of the aisle.
The way that I was raised is simply with certain, call it old-fashioned values, or of, you know, you got to be work hard. And my grandmother always ingrained to me, work hard, get an education, get a good job, and then take care of your family, and then eventually get married, have children, that type of thing. So it wasn't really a political indoctrination or education. It was just simply the way that we're kind of reared to be.
So you didn't grow up, I'm sorry, you didn't grow up with that civic-mindedness?
Not necessarily.
More family-oriented than civic-oriented?
Yeah, I think it was more of trying to survive and making ends meet and helping my mother and I kind of move forward. So it wasn't really political. It wasn't really till I got older in college someone asked me, Paul, you're Puerto Rican, so, or excuse me, he just asked, are you a Republican or Democrat? And I said, well, I'm Latin. Back when we just called it just Latin.
Okay.
So I suppose I must be a Democrat. And they said, there's no way you're a Democrat. So that prompted me to go to a college Republican meeting, and then eventually being there, I realized, oh no, okay, all of these sort of values that I had, that I never put a political brand to them, if you will, really sort of coincided more with a right-of-center worldview and something that was more in line with the Republican and, let's say, libertarian and conservative movement.
So college is when you first got involved with the college Republicans.
Yes.
And then where did the Republican trajectory take you then, so that right now you are chair of the Assembly?
Well, when I was in college, I joined the college Republicans, but again, I wasn't so active. And then when I graduated from college, I came to New York. I worked on Wall Street, and my concern there, I used to work very insane hours, and I wasn't really so politically active. So it wasn't really till about 1998 where I had a respite from work, and it coincided with the Clinton impeachments that I started really paying attention more, not just to foreign policy, which is what I used to focus on mostly, but really domestic policy and what was going on. And that's how I started becoming active in these clubs.
And so then you became active, you became politically active, and you started working on things like looking at propositions. And one of the propositions that's on the ballot this time around, if you turn the ballot over, you'll see those propositions. It's Proposition 1. What's your take on Prop 1?
Proposition 1 is a very interesting one, because from the way that it's built, is simply an expansion of discrimination protections. So when you see the text of it, it basically it doubles the number of protected classes within the New York State Constitution.
So I'm going to stop you there. So far, it sounds like a good thing, because who doesn't want anti-discrimination policies, right? But then, so keep going. So that's where we are so far.
But the problem is that what you see on the ballot and what you see on the voter guide is only half the story. Okay. The second paragraph that follows that, which is what's going to be in the state constitution, is what has caused all of this contention and all of this criticism about it. Because what does that second paragraph says? It says that the government will have the right to enact any law, regulation, mandate that may discriminate against a particular group of people if it's under the guise of reversing past discrimination or preventing future discrimination.
Okay.
So again, that seems to sound somewhat reasonable, but the problem is it's very ambiguous language and it's very open to interpretation. And you have seen from both the left and right broad interpretations of what this proposition can do. But the point is you're giving the government so much power in a way that, like I said.
So one of the things that we talked about right now with Prop 1 is discrimination. And one of the discrimination types that we find here in Queens, and it seems like everywhere in the country, is LGBTQ discrimination. And What Queens Thinks has a segment on that for you right now.
Treat people like humans, because we're all human first. Everything else of what you identify, your pronoun, your gender, your this, your that, comes secondary. Be a good human first, then everything else will take care of itself.
It's not your business what people decide to be. Let them be. You know, this is a free country, there's everybody coming here to be what you want. If you regret after, that was your decision. But I think it needs to be respected because nobody's better than anyone. Humans are humans.
No one should be discriminated, no matter what race you are from, what race you come from, what gender you have. Should not be an issue.
I mean, we have a diverse culture here. We also have a diverse from an age group perspective. And so I think there's a lot more acceptance of the LGBT community when it comes to like the younger generation. I think the older generation may have more of a challenge accepting. And so like the more it becomes more front and center and more public, I think the better.
It seems like our country is moving to more intolerant ways and like less understanding ways of each other rather than trying to see who's in your community and just get to know them without worrying about what group are they even from, you know what I mean? But queer people in New York definitely do have a lot to worry about, and I would just say our local government can make a big difference there. I think our current mayor is not somebody that the LGBTQ community trusts at all. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
So I just feel like it's like, leave them alone, who cares? It's you know, it's no one's business.
I think it's a big issue for transgendered people at the moment. They're under attack in some respects, but you know, we've come a long way as a country, and I don't really know. I'm very pleased with a lot of the progress that's taken place, and I'm hopeful that that will bear itself out in the future, but I'm not sure if that's my focus in this election. It's greatly important.
Very interesting to see what Queens thinks about the LGBTQ community. And speaking of the community, we have an advocate. His name is Jonathan Griffiths. He's with us on Zoom. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening. Hello.
I don't know if Jonathan can hear us.
I can.
Oh, great. Hi, Jonathan. Good evening.
Hi.
You're an advocate in the community. I don't know if you just saw what Queens thinks about the community and the challenges. Tell me about your experience as far as it goes with voting today and why it was so important for you in this election.
Well, I think not just locally, but nationwide, it's a very, very important election. The perception is that basic freedoms can be on the line. You don't know the fear and anxiety that myself and my friends are going through because there are people on the top tier ticket who have said blatantly anti-gay things and who have advocated for taking away hard fought for rights, and it's a very stressful and anxiety prone day.
Unpack that anxiety for us, Jonathan. Not really as far as the election goes, but in your everyday life.
In my everyday life, I am able to express who I am. I am able to hold my partner's hand of 15 years in public. I am able to live a life with no secrets about who I am. It's not the entirety of my being, but it's an essential part of myself and my life, as I'm sure your orientation is. If you have a spouse or a significant other, it's a casual conversation. You bring up your husband or your wife, and in more bigoted times, and as the pendulum may or may not swing, it's like talking about certain relationships can be it's like strongly frowned upon is the simplest way to say it, but it can be a point of leading to violence. People still get bashed just for being who they are. And it's not just in orientation, it can be, it's like cross-racial relationships and other things as well. So it's the hair on the back of my neck is standing up.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, before we let you go, what are your thoughts on Proposition 1 on the second side of the ballot?
I'm not as local as I was, but from my friends and family who have discussed it with me, ultimately it looks like it's headed toward passage, and I honestly believe that that's a good thing.
But what other, as far as voting goes, what other laws would you like to see passed or put forward to protect people in your community?
I think just simple common sense laws, like, it's like don't hurt, don't hurt someone because they're different. It's like everybody should be protected. I think one of the promos that aired during the break, it was kind of dancing around the points. Like it said, we're all human first. Yes, we are all human first, but being human has an entire spectrum of people, whether it's, it's like LGBTQ, it's like the trans community stood up immensely in gaining gay and lesbian rights. And now when it's time for us to stand up for them through these turbulent times, many, even within the gay community, are turning their backs on the trans community, and that is wrong. It's like, with regard to gender and gender expression, it's like people on the extreme side said, well, it's like only two genders were created, but the intersex people are born intersex. So there is more to the spectrum than people even take the time to think about.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on the spectrum and about the legal recourse, the laws that we have on the books and the ones coming up as well. Best of luck to you. Thanks again, Jonathan Griffin.
Thank you. Have a good night.
LGBTQ advocate. Your thoughts, Paul?
Well, I think we as New Yorkers would agree that we don't want to discriminate against anyone, regardless of whether you're on the left or the right. We believe in human rights for everyone, in equal opportunities for everyone, definitely. I think one of the practical aspects, in fact, of the LGBTQ portion of this, as it relates, for example, to gender identity, and why you see those ads about ending girls' sports. Because if, for example, if a biological male wants to compete in girls' sports, because of those additional protections in Proposition 1, as some areas where they're saying they're trying to bar, let's say, transgender trans girls from competing with biological girls, with this proposition in place, even if there were a law on the books in the state requiring that, it would basically
thanks again, Paul. We are going to ask someone else their thoughts about this as well, and that's Vanessa Simon. She's joining us in the studio this evening. She's a Republican strategist. Good evening, Vanessa Simon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us on Qptv Election Night 2024 Live. Tell us about your voting experience this time around.
This time around, I think it's critical to highlight that it's larger than party lines. Like, this is truly about preserving values and ideologies, and that's what it boils down to.
And your voting experience, did you vote in person? Did you wait till election day? How did that work for you?
Voted in person. Every year I bring my nephews to show them the process and show them how important it is to really perform and have their civic duty and the honor behind it.
And why is it so important for you to take that next generation into the voting booth with you to watch you fill out the oval?
It is absolutely critical in our country. We lack civic education. You know, no one really understands, and that's why we're at this place today in society where everyone's so polarized, but yet they don't really understand local politics. So bringing the next generation along is what will save our country in the long run. So we do need to reintroduce civics education, teaching them why it's important, why their vote matters, and just how critical it is to get involved in their communities.
And that kind of ties into something that Paul was speaking about right before we joined with you, that there's a cloud, if you will, around Proposition 1 on the ballot. It seems like it's one thing, you read a little bit further, it seems like something else. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I find the propositions far too dense. I mean, you're reading them. I must have read mine like a million times, still made no sense. And this is for like America. Like, it should be easier to digest and read, comprehend. It shouldn't be some ulterior motive baked in. You're trying to flip it over, see what's underneath and what's more to it. It's getting to a point where we really do have to simplify things. Why make it so complex?
And how do you think we can do that moving forward?
I think putting it in language that everyone understands. I mean, you have to understand, I highlight a lot about next generation. I talk about local politics, being a New York Republican, which is so different because I am a Republican. And it's just about civics education. So it's just important to bring people along and not make things more complicated where they're already not in tune and they don't care. So by simplifying it, it brings people along and it doesn't separate those that truly want to understand why their vote matters and what impact it'll have on their communities.
Thanks so much for your thoughts this evening, Vanessa. Vanessa Simon, Republican strategist, thanks so much for joining us on Qptv Election Night 2024 Live. Your thoughts, Paul, on what Vanessa was just talking about?
Well, I certainly agree with Vanessa. One of the things we do lack is transparency, as I was mentioning at the beginning. We have this very sort of innocuous language that we're simply expanding discrimination protections and adding more protected categories. But what we don't see is this other, the actual sort of, the actionable part of that proposition, which is the government can say, under the guise of addressing past discrimination or preventing future discrimination, I basically have the power to enact any kind of law or regulation that I want. And that, the problem is those unintended consequences of something like that. Take another one of the protected categories, age. You're saying, well, you cannot discriminate against someone based on age, which makes sense. But people usually only focus on the elderly. They don't realize that that also refers to minors. So for example, under the Proposition 1, a minor could conceivably agree to medical interventions, medical treatments, surgical treatments, puberty blockers, those sort of things. They can consent with it without any kind of parental supervision or notification. And in fact, if a parent even wants to get the medical records related to that, the parent would not be able to do so because under Proposition 1, that minor is a protected class regardless of that minor's age. So it is all of these potential sort of, it's Pandora's box that you're really opening of so many things that can be done, and because the language is so ambiguous, it's really open to just about anything that those in power want to enact.
So we're going to come back to that, Paul, in just a few moments. And right now, we're going to go to, do we have Walter Sanchez on the phone?
We do. We're ready to go.
Great. All right. So our next guest is someone who, if you live in Queens or if you live in any of the boroughs, quite frankly, you probably have some experience with BQE Media and Walter Sanchez. Good evening, Walter.
Good evening.
He's the publisher and editor of the Queens Ledger. And I know that you've got some guests on with you this evening. Would you like to tell us who they are?
So we publish 7 weekly community newspapers throughout Queens. The Queens Ledger is one of them. The Glendale Register is another. The Leader Observer of Woodhaven. The Long Island City Astoria Journal. The Forest Hills Times. The Queens Examiner, and a paper out in Rockaway called The Wave, which is the Bible of Rockaway. It's been around since 1893, weekly paper. We're on 100 newsstands out there, and we've been closely following a race out there that we'll get into. It's the 23rd Assembly District race. Stacey Pfeffer Amato is the incumbent and being challenged by Tom Sullivan, the Republican. But I'd like to introduce our panelists and our guest here tonight. First, we have a former councilman, and he's the Chief Executive Officer of the Variety Boys and Girls Club of Queens, Costa Constantinidis. Say hello.
Hey, everyone. Good evening.
We have a Republican strategist for over 20 years, and he's a columnist in the Queens Ledger newspapers, Robert Hornak. Say hi, Robert.
Hello, everybody.
All right. And we have, and the paper, the Wave of Rockaway, the editor-in-chief for a decade, and he's on the ground there, knows everything that's going on out in Rockaway. It's Mark Healy. Say hi, Mark.
Hi, everybody.
All right, and a community editor and the Rockaway guru of Rockaway, John Schilling, and he's been at Stacey Pfeffer Amato's campaign headquarters tonight, and Mark Healy's been at the Tom Sullivan campaign headquarters right now. And Mark, I'm going to go to you first. Where are you right now, and what's the temperature at the
I'm in Breezy Point. It's the Breezy Point Catholic Club, and that's where Tom is having his watch party. And look, the people are still optimistic. You know, all the precincts aren't in. It's a close race, and as we learned last time around, only 15 votes deciding the race. Every vote counts. So I don't think anybody's conceding anything here. The energy's good. The room is packed, and I think this was a contentious race. The two candidates don't really agree on anything, and it's just one of those things where when every vote is counted, you're still probably going to have about 700 to 800 mail-in ballots that are going to have to be counted. So I think this race is going to go down to the wire. So whatever happens at the end of tonight, as far as the precincts reporting in, I think at the end of the day, no one's going to be able to, call this a victory, I don't think, unless something, radical changes in the last hour or so.
Now, it's a little bit different from Queens, where we're looking at the races live tonight, and it looks like, the Democrats typically win, 2-1 or close to that all over Queens. And this was a close race, as you said, 2 years ago, won by 100 votes. I don't think we found out for like 10 days who won the vote. It was kind of contentious. Why? What's the issue there in Rockaway?
Well, in Rockaway, the Stacey's the incumbent, but she made a lot of unpopular votes like bail reform and the Committee for Reparations and supports Prop 1, and a lot of people in Rockaway don't support any of those things. So that's why this race is close. With somebody like Tom Sullivan, who's not a politician, he seems to say things that people agree with. And, he is a law and order candidate. He has an extensive military background, business background, but, local business owner. So a lot of people like what Tom has to say. And, that last election wasn't 100 votes. It was 15 votes. So, that is a situation where somebody who's an incumbent should be winning a race by 15 votes. So, I think that's why every vote matters. Every vote counts, as we said in the Wave this week. And at the end of the day, I think those mail-in ballots are probably going to be the thing that decides this race.
And we, they're about 1,000 votes apart right now. 20,000 votes for Stacey and 19,000 votes for Tom Sullivan. Of course, we're waiting for those mail-in ballots. John, I want to go to you.
Those numbers have changed a little bit.
Okay, go ahead. What do you got?
Let me just refresh my browser, make sure I got the most up-to-date here. Oops. Okay. Oh, sorry. My thing shot all the way to the top. Hang on one second. My apologies. Okay, we got Stacey's at 20,500 and Tom's at 20,004. So it's about a 500 vote race right now.
So, John, I'm going to go to you for a second. What was Stacey's main concerns? I mean, it seems like she galvanized voters. It was, it's still pretty close, and she's still winning by 500 votes. What is her big issue? I mean, do you think people didn't know that she actually got rid of the toll on the Rockaway, on the bridge there to Rockaway? Queens residents now do not have to pay for that toll, or they get reimbursed if they use an Easy Pass. And I don't think she made as much of that issue as she should have. But what were the issues there for her?
Well, Walter, I would say I think that the whole toll rebate thing got a little bit overshadowed by congestion pricing. I think that conversation was something that came up, her vote in favor of congestion pricing. So I think that sort of dominated that conversation. And I think the other thing with Stacey, as Mark mentioned before, was bail reform and also the migrant crisis. I think those are the two big things that sort of got voters to come out and not necessarily support Stacey, because Tom Sullivan and Stacey see very differently on those particular issues. So I think people in Rockaway went to the ballot, went to the polling place rather, with that sort of idea in mind. Also, I think at the end of the day, when you consider issues of public safety versus a toll rebate, a lot of people aren't thinking about the toll rebate. They're thinking about public safety, and they're thinking about, is it safe to walk down the street, that kind of thing, not do I have to pay a toll to go over the bridge. But, to each their own. But I would say that those are the main issues.
Yeah, I mean, Rockaway people never had to pay for the toll anyway. It was more for like the Howard Beach people, and there aren't too many in that district. But she did something for the rest of us Queens residents. I live in Queens outside of Rockaway and didn't run. So it affected me. Robert, I want to go to you for a minute. So you've got a number of Republicans that have been running for office. The same Tom Smith. He got 33%. It looks like he lost to Grace Meng again. I mean, what's the Republican strategy out there in Queens to get more Republicans involved? I know Hevesy had a nice race in Forest Hills. It was closer than people imagined. What do you got? I mean, what's going on in Queens with the Republican Party?
Yeah, I mean, the Sam Berger race was a little closer, I think, than a lot of people expected as well. And he only had a nominal challenger. You could say the same, I guess, for Braunstein, who only had a nominal challenger. And, it was a bigger margin there, but certainly, not a bad showing for somebody who didn't really run a race. The Republican strategy is basically to look at areas that have been trending more red or, more purple, and to try to find good candidates to run. It would flip those closer competitive seats. So you look at Northeast Queens, you look at South Queens, you look at areas like Middle Village, where people like Zeldin did well and Sleewa did well when they ran.
What's going on, but I haven't.
You've got to get good candidates, good Republicans to run down ballot underneath those citywide and statewide candidates.
And I didn't hear what you were saying last. That's why I didn't know.
If they run if they run a good race, they raise the money and they do the work, we can flip some of those seats.
One of the races that I'm looking at, Toby Ann Stavisky for Senate, and her district runs all the way north-south district. We can hear you. Qptv, we can hear you. Just put yourself on mute. Yatin, we can hear you at Qptv. We can hear you on mute, please. All right, so Yatin Chu looks like is down by 6 points to Toby Ann Stavisky. Now, there's the heavy Asian, population there in her district, and they probably did that on purpose. Is she somebody who the Republican Party is embracing?
She's been a little bit controversial. There's a lot of issues where she aligns with Republicans, but she has been vocally against Trump. And that actually turns off a lot of her Asian base, because Asian voters actually like Trump very much. So I think that, she may have actually hurt herself in this campaign by doing that. But that is a district, certainly the northern part of the district, where, Republicans have been doing well lately. Vicky Palladino is the city councilwoman in the northern part of that Senate district. And the underlying districts around there and the neighboring council districts are all possible pickups for the Republican. That Senate district does go further south into territory that's been a little bit tougher for Republicans to crack. But, if you start winning the underlying upper area seats, the northeast Queen seats, then you can start to work your way into those Senate seats as well.
And I'm sure you saw your guy Kenneth Peck over there. He's only like 5 points behind Neely Rosick. You know,
yeah.
And that Neely Rosick is pretty well liked from what we see out there. But I mean, she's only down about 1,500 votes. He's only down about 1,500 votes. Not all of them are in yet, but not a lot of people really voted in that district. How important for your party or for right-leaning people are getting people out to vote? Because 40,000 people voted out in the Rockaway so far, and you got 20,000 in the middle of Flushing there. I mean, so how important is it to get people out to vote, and how do you do it?
Well, it's extremely important, for obvious reasons. But look, every district is going to have its own dynamic in terms of the percentage of people that come out to vote. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In some districts, it's because you have a lot of non-citizens who may not be able to vote. So that will certainly affect it. Areas that have higher income, higher net worth, they come out in higher numbers. That's true across the country. So there's a lot of different factors that can be involved. But one of the things that I do as a consultant is I look at the list of voters, the potential people that might come out that year, and I put together a universe to target for the candidate. So that's going to be 10,000 in one district and maybe 20,000 in another district. But whatever that number is, you've got to make sure that you communicate your message to every single one of those voters and make sure that once you've identified them as a supporter, or you see from their history that they're very likely to go out and vote, and they're one of yours, they're a Republican. You've got to get them out to vote. You can't take a chance.
And while we have you here, what do you think? How do you think the presidential election is going as far as you're concerned?
Well, so far I think it's looking relatively good for Trump. I'm cautiously optimistic. He's up by about 5 points in Georgia and North Carolina. Pennsylvania, last I looked, which was about half an hour ago, they were neck and neck. He was doing relatively well in Virginia. He was up. I don't know if he still is, but he was up about 1.5 points in Virginia. Was looking very good in Wisconsin. They were very close there. He was actually even doing well in Minnesota, which is kind of shocking. So this.
I wanted to ask you something. I mean, there's people want to make. We're about New York and about local. When people want to say, and I certainly believe that. If he does well in New York, if he loses by less than 10 points, that's a good sign for him nationally.
That's a very good sign for him nationally. Unfortunately, in New York, he's down by about 20 last I saw. But if you look over at New Jersey, he only was down by 6, which was really shocking to me.
So, Costa, I want to go to you for a minute. There are a couple of races there. AOC is always an interesting race, and people think she's just infallible and not beatable. And she's winning by a pretty large margin, although it's not one of those races where you say where it's been like 85-15 in the past. What do you attribute that to, or what do you think is going on? I mean, she's up 57-26. About 60,000 votes or so. 119-54. Okay, 65,000 votes. I mean, how is she done in your area in Astoria?
I mean, it looks like. I just ran some numbers from 2022, and it looks like it's very similar. Where it's a 2-to-1 margin that she's winning by this go around, and she won by exactly the same margin 2 years ago against Tina Forte. I mean, this is a district that is deep blue. Zoran Mamdani didn't have a challenger here. Krista Gonzalez won big tonight. Mike Gianaris won. I mean, this neighborhood also has been carved up through redistricting on the state level, both in the Assembly and the state Senate, where what used to be one unified Senate district, or at least 2 Senate districts, are now 4 Senate districts. I mean, Tobian Stavitsky, in that race you brought up earlier, is my state senator in Northern Astoria, and yet she's still the state senator for North Shore Towers at the Long Island border. How that makes sense is baffling to me, how this was drawn. But I also am looking at the propositions, and it looks like 2 through 5 won tonight. That's a win for Mayor Adams,
Yeah, it is.
where he talks about, this was being cast as, Prop 2 through 6, where, you had a lot of the Democrats saying no, vote against this proposition. 6 looks to have lost, and 2 through 5 looks to have won. So that I'm not sure if people were out there talking about these propositions, what was happening with them, but it looks like folks were just going right down the line, and there's about 90-something% in. So I don't know if they're gonna fail at this point.
And Proposition 1, it got a yes as well. So does this affect Mayor Adams? Do you think it affects how he looks to everybody and his ability to run for office? I mean, you got Giuliani even said he was going to run, and you got Curtis Leawood, you got Giuliani, and you got Cuomo and Jumaane Williams and all the people over there. Does it affect Adams that a win with the, yay, got the baby there?
Sorry, I'm on daddy duty, but look, yeah, here she is. Say hi, Eva. Hi, make your TV debut. There you go.
Oh, beautiful.
I would say that in the world of politics, 8 months is a lifetime. You could live like 10 political lifetimes in 8 months. And, I don't know if anyone would look tonight as a win on Prop 2 through 5 as a bellwether to what's going to happen in June. But very honestly, look, it's a win. You take the W when you can get it, right?
This is true. So, Robert, I want to go back to you for a second. Make a case for Curtis. I know you're a fan of Curtis. Curtis Leawood started the Guardian Angels and brought him by our office. Wonderful columnist, bring him by our office. Make a case. Why should we vote? Why should we be voting for Curtis next time around?
Well, if you care about the direction that the city is going in, if you care about crime, care about public safety, you care about preserving neighborhoods the way that they've been, zoned and preventing, suburban communities or more suburban-like communities from being upzoned. You care about a lot of these issues. You care about taxes. You care about small businesses. I can go on and on, of course. You need somebody like Curtis Leawood to become mayor in 2025. Because if it's Adams turned out to be much more left in terms of governing than people expected. Maybe the one exception is the way he's supported the police, but I think it's been a lot of lip service. But if Adams gets pushed aside, which looks like is going to happen, the chances that some far left radical candidate that doesn't support the police, that considers them the enemy, that wants to let criminals essentially roam free. What are we going to, where they're shutting down Rikers Island and they have no plans really to build replacement jails. So that's going to be a major problem that the next mayor is going to have to deal with. So we've got to have somebody that takes law and order and public safety really seriously. Nobody's more experienced in that than Curtis. So I'll certainly be voting for him. And I hope that 51% of New Yorkers do as well.
So Costa, you're a lifelong Democrat. Do you really care if you lose the House? It looks like Mike Lawler's winning by about 10 points up there over Mondaire Jones. It was a close, people thought it was going to be a close race. I'm not sure how close it ends up being. He's the incumbent Republican, of course. Does it matter to you very much if you guys,
to me is if things hold this evening, if you don't win the House, even something, there are particular funding sources that don't come to the city of New York related to who's control of the House. And that's not playing Democrat versus Republican. That's just a fact, right? The Republican Party has said that, congressional funding for arts and education is not allowed from individual members. So if you're a Democrat, regardless if you're a Democrat, if you care about education, if you care about arts funding, if you care about things that are, matter to real people, the direction of the House matters in that way. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of game left to be played throughout the country. But New York is a bellwether. If we don't pick up the seats that they thought we were going to get, particularly with certain policy decisions that were made, it's definitely disappointing. to see that. But well, let's see. I mean, it looks like a lot of these, numbers are still so early. I mean, Avalon, out on the far island is still, it's getting closer to coming to an end there. But yeah, there's still a lot of stuff that we should have grabbed that we maybe not.
Yeah, Stefanik looks like.
And it looks like Laura Gillen won. She's up by about 18,000 votes. And
the Democrats, I think, lost one Senate seat when we went on. It was like, I think 43 to 34 or something like that when we got on. So back out to you, Mark. Has the mood changed at all? Any more numbers come in out there? How many people you got out there at the party? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. All right, we'll go to you, John. John.
Yep.
Have you talked to any of Stacey's people since we've gotten on?
I have, and the energy did change when I was at the party earlier at the Bungalow Bar, and the vibe was a little questionable because Tom took an early lead as the first set of votes were coming in, but then Stacey took her first lead around 9:45, and from then she's been gaining. There's still a lot of votes to be counted. I think the most recent numbers that I'm getting with 82% in, it's about a 572 vote difference with Stacey still in the lead. So, the energy has certainly changed at Bungalow Bar. I don't know what it is right now. I'm going to head back there in a little bit, but it's still very close, very close.
And I'll tell you what's really interesting. I don't know why this is weird to me, but like the people that left it blank, only 2.8% left it blank, where in other areas, like 35% left it blank. They didn't care about. So which says to me, a lot of people care about the local vote. Mark, go ahead. Has the mood changed over there?
The mood is still good. I mean, everybody's still very positive. It's close. It's still only, I think, 82% of the votes are in. Yeah. Everybody feels like, they feel good. They feel very positive. It's about 100 people here. Everybody's in good spirits. Candidates in good spirits. I just spoke with Tom, like I said, it was a very close race last time. It's going to be a close race no matter what, happens. And, we'll see.
So you guys were out to the early voting booths. I saw that you were out there. And when I went down to, I think, the YMCA there on Rockaway, they were saying like 500 people a day voted in that spot alone. I mean, any word from why the people voted early, why so many people voted early in this race? It was up nationally. Early voting was up.
I think it had more to do with the presidential election than anything else with the early voting.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark. I think the presidential election, I think the other factor is that because the race was so close in 2022, a difference of 15 votes, people want, whether they're voting for Stacey or they're voting for Tom Sullivan, they would like an answer tonight. It doesn't look like we're going to get one. It looks like it's a close race, but they wanted to come out overwhelmingly to support their candidate and maybe see if we could get an answer tonight. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it if we got an answer tonight, but I mean, 500 votes is going to be recounts and whatever it is. But they've gotten better at this voting thing. I got to tell you, right? Are you confident and comfortable? Are you all comfortable and confident that the voting here, there's no problems with it? I mean, I have heard from the Paul King campaign, they were complaining about people at the polling sites, telling them that they should vote, Democrat. Did you hear any of that stuff or what?
There's always a little bit of that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead, Robert.
So there's always a little bit of that. You always get a few complaints here and there. People think they hear something, or somebody does get told something that's inappropriate. But for the most part, that's not really going to have any effect on these races. There were issues around Queens this morning with the scanners, and apparently it was taking many attempts to pass the ballots through at multiple polling sites. So there were people that were having to do the ballots 6, 8, maybe 10 times. And this was a larger problem than it was expected. But apparently the board addressed the problem. There's no reason that would affect the vote in any way, because once the person fills out the ballot, even if the scanner doesn't take it immediately, the ballots are secured and can be scanned later, because the scanners are just counting devices. But that was an issue that did jam things up and slow things down earlier this morning.
Costa, is there any? Can you give me any insight insight on? I mean, the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, really focused on Western Queens, and not just AOC, but the Juan Ardilla Assembly seat, and there's a Senate seat that covers Greenpoint, Astoria, and Manhattan. I mean, it just seems that the party sends down a lot of people to campaign at early voting sites. Any insight for us on what we need to do? And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we're against them, we got to beat them up, but they seem to. There's very low voter turnout in that area. Look at the Ardilla in that district, Velez, I think her name is Valdez. Very low voter turnout. How do we get the people here to vote in Long Island City and Astoria and Woodside and Sunnyside?
I mean, I think they are voting. I think, honestly, I was having this conversation a few years ago with, a couple of friends of mine, and they were complaining about how the electorate's changed. And, we've seen growth in Western Queens. So this myth of the old, Greek, and I'll say the older Greek voter or white ethnic voter in Western Queens voting, I think they are voting. I think that they're being, their vote is being dwarfed by a growth in population that has, much more progressive. We're seeing, Claire Valdez didn't have an opponent. Zoran didn't have an opponent.
Jennifer Rodcamon, no opponent.
Yeah, so I mean, there wasn't really someone out there to drive the turnout, but she had a primary where there was a lot of endorsements against her, and the party ended up losing that race. So, they're very organized in their, and they're out there knocking doors. I saw it this morning. AOC and a bunch of folks at the train stations, and they were out there doing their thing. People are gonna if someone wants to beat them, they're going to have to do it on the ground, knocking on doors, talking to people about issues that matter. And that's how you win elections. I knocked on 12,000 doors in my first race when I talked about things like getting the garbage picked up and, making sure we keep, clean streets and we have good schools. And if you talk about those things, people are going to respond to that.
I mean, I'm looking at, at blank. People left it blank. More people left it blank than voted for Tom Zitch, in the congressional race, and that's terrible. Rinaldi came close to Hevesi. I think he got 38% of the voice of the vote, and the GOP didn't even support Rinaldi, who ran against Hevesi for the state assembly. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up. I love it that you guys came on. I thought it was a good spirited discussion. And good luck out there at Stacey's and Tom's events. You might be there all night. I don't know. We're gonna have to give you the day off tomorrow because you might be there at 4 a.m. But so John and Mark and Costa and Robert, thank you very, very much for this tonight. This was a lot of fun. Give us some good insight.
Thank you.
Good night, Walter.
Thank you, Walter.
Good night, Walt. Good night, everyone.
Us. Walter is the publisher and editor of the Queen's Ledger and, of course, that stable of BQE media products. So thanks again. Let's move it along. As we move on in election night, we like to hear from a lot of different diverse voices, and one of those voices just happens to be the party chair of the Republican Party right here in Queens. He is Bob Turner, and he's joining us on the phone. Good evening, Bob.
Good evening. How are you, Ross?
I am well. I am here. I don't know if you know this, but I'm here with Paul Rodriguez. We are sitting in here tonight looking at the election returns. What's the most striking thing going on so far that you've seen, Bob?
Well, it seems to be going Trump's way, even in a very tight race. I think Georgia and North Carolina should be called pretty soon for him. And if Arizona and Nevada follow suit, Harris would have to run the table from that point on, I think. And not impossible, but unlikely.
And what about the down ballot races, Bob?
Well, apparently that didn't have the impact that some of us thought and hoped. The Senate race in Maryland looked like it was going our way for a moment, and then that very strong Democratic organization pulled the rug from under the former governor. And there are a couple of other races that just did not follow the coattails scenario.
So people were splitting the ticket.
Yes, seen that way.
And what about locally? State Assembly District 23, do you have any news for us on that?
Yes, I just left their headquarters 10 minutes ago, and they're feeling pretty optimistic. 73% of the vote is in. Sullivan is down a bit, but the neighborhoods that haven't been added yet are Howard Beach and Breezy Point and another part of Rockaway, which mostly will cut strongly in his favor.
Right.
So there's a feeling of optimism there. Some of the other races are extremely difficult, but everyone knew that going in. The state Senate and, of course, the congressional seat for Mr. Meeks versus Paul King.
Did you have a question, Paul?
Well, I wanted to ask, you're saying that perhaps Trump being on the ballot isn't driving as much in the down ballot races, but would you say that there's been a greater share of Republican voting this election cycle than in past cycles?
I think we'll have to wait for the numbers to come in, but yes, I believe he has been very successful in getting the vote out and getting people to register and vote. I think we're going to see some big increases in first-time Republican registration and heavy voting for people that haven't done so much over a course of the last 10 or 20 years. So he was able to energize and motivate a pretty loyal following.
Well, thanks so much for your insight tonight, Bob. It's been Bob Turner, Republican Party Chair, with us live on the phone. Thanks again.
Former Republican Party
Chair. Sorry.
Queens County.
Former.
And former Congressman. Okay.
Of course. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
out
that.
of the game. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. And as we are moving along with our guests, we've heard from Republicans, we've heard from Democrats. Now we're going to hear from the people kind of in the middle. But before we, and as we hear from them, that person is Michael Niebauer. Good evening, Michael. He's with the Independent Party. And how are you this evening, Michael?
Good. Doing well.
And how are you feeling about the election today? Your thoughts?
Well, I wanted everyone to know Donald Trump was an enrolled member of the Independence Party when he started the road to the White House in 1998-99. So we are invested in his candidacy. We hope that he prevails tonight.
And I know that your party started with Ross Perot and that zeal of grassroots organizing. Did you feel that zeal tonight?
I feel, yes, both sides, early voting. I'm very impressed with the early voting all around the U.S. I'm glad that people are starting to participate, understand the importance of voting. So, still hope for America.
And what was your voting experience, Michael? Did you early vote by mail?
I went out and I voted early.
Mm-hmm. Early voting?
Yes.
And one other question from Paul.
Sure.
What would you say are the biggest issues that the Independent Party is focusing on this cycle?
Well, independent voters, I mean, you had a presidential candidate, it was Robert Kennedy, and he decided to abandon his candidacy and help Donald Trump endorse him and help him get elected. So it's actually, sometimes, with in the middle, you grow up from both sides, left and right, and you want to do is your coalition, but you build coalitions to get elected. So if you're in the middle, you got to take from both sides to get your candidate elected.
And thanks so much for that third-party point of view, Michael Niebauer. Thanks for joining us live on Qptv this evening for our election night 2024. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'd like to also thank someone else, and that's my co-host from this hour, Paul Rodriguez. Paul, thanks so much for sharing it with me this past hour.
Well, it's been fun, Gail. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. It was good to see my good friend Vanessa Simon and see my other good friend Robert Hornak via Zoom. But thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the night brings.
And it's a nail-biter in so many races, so thank you so much for joining me, and we'll be watching right along with you. And after this break, we have another co-host joining us. He is Dr. Peter Bales from the same place I work, Queensborough Community College, part of CUNY, right here in Queens. We're going to meet Dr. Bales right after this message.
The move comes 4 days after her blackface comment that provoked a firestorm.
In an era of media consolidation and globalization, the PEG channels root our media in local communities, in local voices, and that is absolutely indispensable.
A lot of people are able to get job training, information, just from using public access.
This is about the arts. This is about accessibility. This is about transparency.
Great youth media programs. Programs giving people second chances in being able to learn new skills.
PEG stations give viewers critical information about their communities and offer an important platform for local residents. PEG channels connect us to our communities, and they enrich our lives every single day of the year. The FCC should work for communities, not powerful cable companies. This battle is a lot like the fight for net neutrality. Net neutrality is really about every voice, no matter how small, being heard. The same is true here with the PEG channels.
The main threat facing media centers nationwide is that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is going to redefine how we receive our funding.
It will impact the people who we're trying to serve. They're actually paying for us in their cable bill. And now all of a sudden the cable operator is taking their money, then deducting it from us.
They cannot be in a position where they basically force the shuttering of PEG channels all across our country.
We need Congress to tell the FCC that they're out of bounds.
It's pretty clear to me that the FCC is an agency that does the public's will begrudgingly, and it fits and starts.
We're talking about supporting causes, charities, education, youth, seniors, democracy.
This is not a left issue. This is not a right issue. This is an everybody issue.
If you care about protecting local community access television, raise your voices.
Good evening again, everyone, and welcome back to the third hour of Queens Public Television's Election Night 2024 Live. I'm Gail Lewis, and it's my pleasure to be back with you again. If you're just joining us, we have had so many local people on this evening, and we've been following the election results. And it's someone who's with me who I know professionally from my job, and I also know personally as well because he's a really cool guy to hang out with. And he is Dr. Peter Bales from Queensborough Community College's History Department. Good evening, Peter.
Thank you. I am Dr. Peter Bales, not Jerry Springer, back to life, as a lot of people think. So great to be here, Gail, with you.
I'm doing it.
Exciting night. Anybody who thought that one or the other was going to run run away with it. I'm sorry, that is not happening. We're going to be up late and anything goes, I think.
Absolutely, anything goes. We've been watching some of the results locally. It looks like, according to the... Okay, so Peter, what we're going to do is we're going to check your sound and we're going to come right back. Since we're having a little problem with Peter's audio, let's go to a commercial break and we're going to come right back with more Qptv Election Night 2024 live.
Another number, right? Think again. It can mean all sorts of bad things. Swimming is great, but swimming with 130 sharks is a bad idea. 130 is too much of a lot of things, and it's too high for blood pressure. A blood pressure reading of 130 over 80 or higher means you're more likely to have a stroke or heart attack. Visit heart.org/HBP to find out more about controlling your blood pressure.
Did you know that suicide is a serious public health problem? Did you also know that suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 through 14 and 25 through 34?
We exist in a cold, cold world, but it's hot out here. It's the reason why we living in fear. I could die from the poli, that ain't no lie. I done seen death up close with my own eyes. Try to say goodbye, but the spirits still live on. This a cry for help, you can hear it in this song. Better days are coming, cause the sun is still come up. When it's time for you to see me, I'll be there when you run up. Keep running.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Thank you.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to Qptv Election Night 2024 live. I'm Gail Lewis, and I'm back with you this evening with my co-host for the next hour. As I was saying before, we know each other professionally. We work on the same CUNY campus, and that's Queensborough Community College. And he is the history department's favorite historian on Qptv. I have to qualify it. He's Dr. Peter Bales. Good evening, Peter.
So great to be here. So much happening in the country, so much happening here in Queens tonight. And when America has a free and fair election, we all win, and it really is exciting. And we're living history right now.
And if that's the case, then we are all winners as far as free and fair goes.
We are, absolutely.
Yes. And so, talking about free and fair and being good to the country, someone who has been really good to this country is Sam Mantilla, and he is joining us in the studio this evening. He's with the Disabled Veterans Association, and he's got a lot of insight on this election as well. Good evening, Sam.
Good evening.
And thank you for your service. Let's just start right there. So thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
And I know that you are part of Disabled Veterans. Tell us about your capacity there.
Well, actually, I was a former state commander for the Disabled American Veterans for the state of New York. Now I'm a very strong advocate now. That's what I do for us vets.
And in your role as an advocate for veterans, what issue, especially right now, we had a big election today, what issue seems to be important in the community?
Well, I like to see this administration or the future administration do better for us vets. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on with veterans issues, health care, community health care. The VA is trying to do its best. However, they're not there yet. They're constantly dropping the ball. So right now, us vets are actually paying the price. We used to have 30 days for appointments. Now they're they're back to 120 days. A lot of vets are actually hurting. They need help, they need medical assistance. And I just hope that this administration can do something before it's over. If not, let the next administration take over.
And I think Peter has a question for you
I
as
do.
well.
Sam and I were talking in the green room, and we both agreed, doesn't matter what party you are, everybody wants to support our veterans. And there seems to be some sort of a logjam. The aid that you were getting, the support you were getting for so many presidents. You started talking to me about Ronald Reagan and the president's bipartisan ever since. And what is happening now that's so different?
Well, I have to say one thing, though. I hate to say this, but this administration is, they just keep on dropping the ball. I mean, like I said, I served with, in the military from Reagan down to Herbert Bush, down to Clinton, down to Obama. Never had a problem. With Donald Trump, never had a problem. This administration, always a problem. I don't know why. You know, we are here. I mean, the only thing that we want is our benefits. You know, I mean, we were injured in combat. Like I said, we went in, but we came back a little different. You know, a lot of people don't understand that. Even our spouses, our friends, they to this day, they still don't understand.
And in addition, Sam, to the medical benefits and the medical issues with the veterans hospitals, what other issues are you finding?
Well, one thing I've been doing, I've been going to Washington a lot with my coworkers. We actually do this at pro bono. You know, this is a volunteer organization that I belong to, Unified Veteran Service Foundation. We go down to Washington and we actually flip the script. However, we deal with the Board of Corrections. For instance, when a veteran has other than honorable, we'll flip it to an honorable discharge so they can get their benefits. Because if you have an other than honorable, you're not going to get the benefits at all, even though you have emotional problems. However, you know, it's all about getting help. That's all it is. You have to raise your hand and say, listen, I need help. One thing I noticed that we started with 20 veterans that are committing suicide. Now we're up to 24. And it's going to go higher and higher. And as long as, you know, they're always saying that, well, yeah, we'll try. But they're constantly dropping the ball. You know, we never had a problem with Obama. We never had a problem with Clinton, okay? You know, we never had a problem with Donald Trump, okay? Bush, never had a problem with them. The father and the son never had a problem. Reagan never had a problem either, okay? It's just that things that are going on that's like, in this administration, no one gets fired, you know, which is sad because they're always dropping the ball. You know, I see that a lot in a lot of VAs. The ones in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, Queens, actually in Lyons, also in East Orange, the Bronx. To me, it's all different. It's not all the same, but we're supposed to be all Americans together, no matter what. But it seems like, you know, the people that work for the VA is like, they don't really care, honestly. They're just there just to pick up a paycheck. But without us, they wouldn't even have a job. But they don't understand that, which is sad.
So, did you have a question for Sam?
Well, I mean, we're all Americans. We all support veterans. We've got to get to the bottom of what this issue is because these benefits need to go to our veterans. I think we all agree that it does. With that, veterans vote. People who support veterans vote. It would behoove all of us to figure out what's going on here because it's the right thing to do, and we support you 100%.
Well, I appreciate that.
And Sam, before we go, just look into that camera. Give me 30 seconds. If you could talk to the man in charge, the woman in charge, what would you say?
Well, one thing I like to say to the future president, male or female, doesn't matter, still our commander-in-chief. Okay, we respect the presidency, And we have to understand that we need your help. You know, we do so many things for this country, and yet we are the last to be taken care of. I hate to say this, but the immigrants are taken care than us vets, a lot better than us vets. They get welfare, they get food stamps, they get a card. Us vets are sleeping out in the streets, which is sad. They get the best hotels, good food. And these guys are out there, and it's sad. I just hope that you guys will wake up and think about what you are planning to do. When you go, when you get elected, look at what has to be done to help out us vets. That's all I'm asking for, and I wish that you guys will do the right thing for this country in general.
Thank you so much, Sam, for opening our eyes and for giving us your fresh perspective on Veterans Affairs. Sam Mantilla from Unified Veterans, thanks so much for joining us on Qptv Election Night 2024 Live. Peter, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, what is going on here? These patriots deserve better.
Yeah.
And the Veterans Administration is a bureaucracy, and we need to make bureaucracies work better. It's as simple as that.
And something else that needs to work better, according to our people on the street, is our access to abortion. So it's our segue into our next episode of What Queens Thinks. And this is about what Queens thinks about abortion.
I think it's up to a woman to control her own body any way she wants, period.
Abortion is a very delicate issue, very controversial issue, especially with religious people. But overall, I think a woman has the right to decide what to do with her body, not politicians, not men.
We need to have that choice. We need to have that option. There should have never been a decision about it in the first place. It's whatever a woman decides.
Women should have the right to choose, not old white guys, not God or government, the woman themselves.
I'm a pro-life person. I'm a practicing Catholic, and therefore abortion is not an option. Only people can go and do whatever they want.
The fact that, Roe v. Wade was turned over, all of that is almost unbelievable to me. And I really hope that we can get the right person in office to reverse that back to where it should be. And I think women need the right to choose and the right to be able to do whatever they would like to do with their own bodies.
Generally, I think it's a woman's decision, whether or not it just comes down to that. I don't think, I think it should be an option for every woman. So that's how I stand. I don't think there should be any banning of that, right? Because if somebody wants to do that anyway, they're going to find a way to do that. So that should be up to a woman.
I believe abortion access should be allowed for people who can give birth. I believe that women have the right to make their own decisions with their bodies. I don't think any government or any man or woman should tell a woman what to do with their body. If a woman feels the need for an abortion, they should be able to do that no matter what. Nobody else's input matters, and I do not think anybody should be involving or creating any laws to stop a woman from getting an abortion and to not make it unsafe for women to do it.
I mean, it's a really complicated issue in some respects, but it's also very simple. Basically, I'm not pro-abortion, but I'm pro-choice. I think it should be up to the individual person and their doctor.
It is up to a woman, period.
I believe that everyone should have a choice in the matter. Everyone should, whether you're a female, I think you should have a choice on what you'd wish to do, and it should come easy for you. It shouldn't be a choice forced upon you, and it shouldn't be something that should be chosen by others.
It's a choice of every human being to decide what is good or what is not good for every human being, but I'm against that. It's kind of crime for me, and I respect everyone's opinion about that.
Abortion should be legal and permitted and free to anyone that wants to seek one. I think all women should be able to do whatever they want with their body, and the government or no man, anybody should be able to tell them otherwise.
Okay, I'm against abortion.
There's a lot to unpack there in that what Queens thinks about abortion, isn't there, Peter?
There really is. And very articulate answers, I thought, from our fellow citizens here in Queens.
Absolutely. And speaking of articulate people in Queens, we happen to have three on the monitors right behind us. And they are Karen Mazza, Cecilia Venosa, and Diane Burrows, three of my favorite Queensites, actually, and also Cecilia from the Center for the Women of New York, right up there in Bayside at the Castle. Great to have the three of you with us. What's at stake in this election, ladies, as far as abortion rights?
Hi, Gail.
Cecilia, start us off, Cecilia.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you so much for having us. It's great to see you always. You are part of our family of the Center for the Women of New York. And a lot is at stakes, yes. And the stakes are very high. As many of our Queens neighbors said, it is a complicated issue. There's no doubt about it. Saying that we're pro-abortion, I don't think anyone's pro-abortion. Like, we are all pro, well, I'm saying all, like here, I think like we're all pro-choice. Like, we absolutely believe that women should choose. And when people say we're not, I'm against abortion or I'm against pro-abortion, I don't think anyone wants that. It is complicated, but we do have a lot of women come to us with like stories that no one wants to have. So we want them and every woman in the future. I have 3 daughters, and to me, this issue is extremely important. It's also extremely important because of our participants in our programs, that the women have the right to choose.
Thank you, Cecilia. Karen, if you could jump in that last video that we watched about what Queens thinks about abortion, something that struck me was one of the gentlemen in the video said that people will find a way. So even if abortion is illegal, people will find a way. Could you speak to that for us?
I think that's very true. As a matter of fact, I can remember back when I was in college when abortion first became legal, listening to women older than me talk about the fact that they went, or they knew people who went to great extremes to be able to access abortion, sometimes to the point where they were really ill or some died. So I do think women will find a way, and that's what's unfortunate. I don't think people realize that women in some situations are desperate. We're not talking about women who have access necessarily to good health care or to the ability to find a doctor. We're talking about women who are going to be in desperate situations and will take desperate means.
Thank you, Karen. And Diane, if you could jump in, another question for you. Women of means are always going to find a way, but a lot of women, especially women in Queens, are just getting by. How would this type of anti-abortion passage, how would that disproportionately affect women who are just living on the margins?
Right. Now, thank you, and thanks for having me. One thing, I'm representing the League of Women Voters of the City of New York, and of course, the League of Women Voters nationally. We support a woman's right to choose. And I think most importantly is to give women the tools they need to really change this, that, to fight it individually when a woman is dealing with this crisis is only one step. What we all have to do is we all have to unite. For example, the passage of the New York State Equal Rights Amendment on the ballot today. I haven't seen the final results yet. I don't know. I'm hoping that that passes. The League has advocated very strongly for that, and that will constitutionally, in the state of New York, protect a woman's right to choose, among other things. But also for women to understand that we have to stand up and really powerfully lobby and advocate to protect each other. So women of means, women who are in a position, who have free time, with retired women, whoever we may be, we all need to be rallying around this so that we can protect our sisters and our daughters and really get this right enshrined constitutionally in New York, hopefully now, and across the country.
And Peter, you had a question?
Yes, one of the respondents in the video said that old white men should stay out of this. And speaking as an old white man, I agreed with that. But I do want to say this. I've spoken to a lot of current moms and dads, and they don't seem to be too happy that their daughters are growing up with less rights than they had since 1973.
Cecilia, closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think about one of the reasons why I moved here, or why I stayed in the United States. I'm from South America. And recently in my country, I'm from Argentina, it was the other way around. Abortion became legal recently. And I definitely feel that we're going backwards. Like, I came here because of the rights that Americans have. And I left a country where citizens did not have as many rights. And now I feel that it's the other way around. My daughters will not have the rights that I came to look for myself and for my kids. An abortion or reproductive rights is one of them.
Thank you so much, Karen Mazza, Cecilia Venosa, and Diane Burrows for joining us live on Qptv this election night. We appreciate your insight, especially on abortion. And we're going to move along right now. Did you enjoy that, Peter?
I really thought that was terrific. I remind my students when we talk about that controversial subject, good, intelligent people can disagree about fundamental issues, and it is so emotional.
And someone who has a unique take on this issue and others is a local doctor. And so to get his point of view on this, he is Dr. Joseph Abularaj, and he is from a hospital right down the block. He used to be, he's newly retired. He was the head of pediatrics, and now he's with us this evening. Good evening, doctor. How are you?
Good evening.
It's great to have you on. Your thoughts on the election tonight?
Well, I'll tell you, I think I have a little bit of a different point of view here. People talk about what you see or hear and what you don't hear or see. And, we hear a lot about what the major issues are here in the United States for our citizens. And you frequently hear the top 2 or top 3 or top 5, the border, the economy, women's rights to make sure they have control of their own medical care, and the list goes on. What did you all think of the comprehensive plans that were put forth by Vice President Harris on the health of children in the United States? What did you think of her plan? Better, what did you think of Trump's plan, his comprehensive plan to improve the health of children in the United States? Because we all can agree that the future of our country is our children. So let me ask you the question. What did you think of Trump's plan for children? What did you think of Harris's plan for children? I could tell you the answer. You didn't think much about it because Trump did not put forth a comprehensive plan for children's health, nor did the vice president. So why is that? Are our children not our most important resource? Of course they are. But children don't vote. So they're not in this election. What we need to do is treat our children the way we treat the rest of our citizens, right? We heard about comprehensive plans for our elderly. But what about our children?
So, Dr.
What
Abularaj,
about their chronic diseases? What about their acute diseases, their complex diseases? How are we coming to the aid of our children?
So
that's my point of view in this election.
Thank you, Dr. Abularaj. So going forward, if you could say one thing, okay. Actually, we are running a little bit out of time, and so I wanted to thank you so much for that impassioned reminder that we really do not look toward children and towards pediatric medicine in our planning for this country, and that maybe we need to shine a brighter light on that going forward. So thank you for that. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Good night. So Peter, thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are the doctor made some good points. Children don't vote. And we do need to always remember that children are our most precious resource, and we can do better. And the candidates should have, I think he's right to call them out for not making more of a point about children's health care. All children, regardless of who they are. If they're in this country, you know, we're the richest country in the world, and we should do better. It's as simple as that.
And I like the fact that he asked those questions. Do you remember the plan by this candidate? Do you recall the plan by that candidate? I don't.
And I was sitting here going, well, actually, I don't.
Yeah, it's not in my notes.
I was looking at you. I hope Gail remembers, because I'm not remembering, but he's right. They were conspicuously silent about children.
Yeah, and like you said, children don't vote. And so, unfortunately, if you're a non-voting population, a lot of times your most important things, the most important things on your mind, or the most important things to your constituency, often get glossed over, as they have been with pediatric
medicine. And they grow up quickly, and pretty soon you and I are teaching them at Queensborough Community College, and we need to do better every step of the way.
Absolutely, from cradle right up to college when we teach them.
And then they're on their own after college.
We can hope. That's the goal.
That is indeed.
And so the goal of someone else who's joining us here on set this evening, her name is Sandy Pope, and her goal is also helping children through her organization, Sisters for Clean Water, I believe it is. Good evening, Sandy Pope. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting me to this very important program.
It's great to have you on with us, Sandy. What's your voting experience been like tonight and for this election season?
Well, it was wacko because I was working for the polls. Started out at 5 a.m. and watching people. There was early voting, so there weren't a lot of people, but I was still standing since 5 a.m. until maybe 10 o'clock at night. So that's my experience.
So you've been working at the polls. How was the turnout? What did you see? What did you hear?
Well, there was very little turnout tonight because of the early voting experience. So I guess everybody came out to early voting, and so there's very little turnout.
Peter, did you have a question?
Oh, I sure do. Well, thank you for your service. That's nice that you worked at the polls. But I want to hear from you. What's the biggest issue that you're concerned about?
Well, two things happened. In 2016, I started the Sister for Clean Water company. It's an environmental company. The objective was, and listening to the conversation previous about our children, I invited girls 8 to 18 years old to participate in environmental programs. But I think one of the exciting part of my program was to get the girls to feel the experience that I've had with Qptv. And what I did, 11-year-old girls were able to host their own shows. They had to research environmental projects and programs. And today, they're 16, 17, not going off to college. So that experience gave them the opportunity to learn how to host a show, do presentations about the environment. But my mission was to lead the way to save the planet. And that's what I've tried to accomplish all these years.
And Sandy, we heard a lot from people on the street right here in Queens that the environment is their #1 concern as they head into the polls this evening and this past 2 weeks to vote. They've talked about different things from recycling to the clean air and clean water and everything in between. What do you find is the environmental concern most on the minds of the children, the young people in your population?
Well, there's a few things that happen. I'm an author of several environmental books, and on the title of the books is Save the Planet, but the subtitle is Plant More Trees, go green. But one of the most important books that I've written was Let's Talk Trash. Trash is a major component to global warming and climate change. When it gets thrown into the dump sites, it creates methane gas, a major gas that contributes to climate change and the activities of these hurricanes and tornadoes that's going on today. So what I'm trying to express with that is that our young people have to understand their position in collecting trash, getting rid of trash, how to get rid of it, and recycle is involved as well. Recycling is important, but they need to understand their part. What part are they going to play, because they're going to be the recipients of this planet going forward. So along with recycling, as you said, recycling, plastic, we already know that plastic is a major component to global warming, because when the landfills are filled, then the dump site becomes the ocean. So the oceans becomes the place where all of the plastic and all the garbage, there's no more room in the ocean. So what are we going to do now? We have to find ways, like I think they're taking aluminum and they're trying to make some other products out of aluminum. They're taking jeans, that you wear. They're trying to make some other kind of component. So the companies are trying to make some major changes in recycle. However, our young people are used to this takeout food, and all of the papers and the straws and the forks and all these accessories are a major component to trash. And and our young people can just drop trash where they stand, but they got to learn what they got to do to remove that.
I'm raising my hand because I'm a teacher. I can't stop myself. I'm raising my hand. I have a question for you, and I want you to set me straight if I'm wrong. Don't hesitate.
Okay.
I've always heard that our New York City water is really good water, something we can be proud of, and something we're doing right by for our children. Is that true? Is that, yes, we have better pizza and better bagels, but are we doing the right thing for our children when it comes to our water right here local in Queens?
Well, you have to figure this out, okay? Water, if you have to put chlorine in water to make it drinkable, then that's a problem. It's not a clean, processed water.
Right.
That should, and FDA says New York water is the best water on earth. But however, if you have to put chemicals in it to make it drinkable, then it's not the best water on earth. Mm-hmm. The best thing that I advise is to get a water filter. Well, I'm an alkaline water filter component. I've had a component since 10, 12 years now. That's all I drink. I don't drink all this other osmosis water, all these other. But New York water has a problem. But what does FDA say? We go with FDA. Says, oh, this is the best water going since fried rice. So what can you do?
Uh-oh.
And also, Sandy, when you're talking about young people, yes, and you were saying that they're into recycling, but yet they have all of these things they've grown up with, like takeout containers and knives and forks, and also things like fast fashion. They've grown up going to stores that sell very inexpensive clothing. They wear the clothing a few times and then they toss it, and that's more in the landfill, more adding to the trash. What can we do for those kids to kind of change them from these very conspicuous consumers into people who reuse and repurpose and recycle?
Well, one exciting thing I found in my research in doing the Let's Talk Trash is that trash is accumulative everywhere. You can look in your refrigerator and find trash. I mean, over an abundance of trash. And you have to buy these refrigerators that have four doors and four freezers, so you got to fill them up. But eventually, it's an accumulation of trash. Then you move from there to your own closets. A lot of clothes. We are accustomed to buying a lot of stuff. We don't throw anything away. So if we don't throw anything away, where does it go? Well, we got to go to the storage. There's 50,000 storage units in the country. Somebody's taking all this old stuff and putting it in the stores, and they go to buy new stuff. So what our young people have to get to understand is perhaps don't buy new stuff. Recycle what they have. Give it away, take it to the thrift store, or go shopping in the thrift store.
I am not throwing out my bell bottoms.
I know.
I can't face it.
They're probably a lot of money.
Your point is well taken. It really is.
Absolutely. Closing thoughts, Sandy? If you could say one thing to the children of America, your population, about recycling and clean water, what would it be?
My message is that young people, this generation coming forward, are the recipients of the planet going forward. They have to, well, in addition to having careers that they can get involved with, in the high school age or in the college age, but if they understand that they're the recipients, that they have to know, why do we have global warming? Why do we have back-to-back hurricanes? It's affecting families, not necessarily here, but in other areas of the country. So they can't just say, oh, it's a storm or it's a tornado. They have to understand why. What did they do? How can they participate? What are the solutions? They got to get involved in their whole makeup to find out how to resolve these problems.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us on set this evening. Sandra Pope, Sisters for Clean Water. She's very passionate about the environment. She's really passionate about the next generation. We love that, Peter.
We certainly do. We teach the next generation, and we want things to be better for the next generation, and that especially includes the environment.
Absolutely. And thanks, Sandy. Someone else who not only are we concerned about the environment, but people here in Queens on What Queens Thinks, the next episode, are also concerned about immigration. And so enjoy this episode of What Queens Thinks on immigration.
I mean, it's a migrant crisis, I would assume, in all of New York City. So, and I assume there's some also in Queens. I haven't seen it in Astoria per se, but obviously I see it on the news in other parts of the city. And I definitely hear about it for family members who have children who are in school and having to have more classrooms that are much more busy and overpopulated than in the past. I think it needs to be a lot more structured in terms of how we allow immigrants in. I do know for other visas, it's just a lot harder to get a visa today. And just for having a more formal way of doing that would be more appropriate from my perspective.
Things like the crime rates are bad because of migrants and things like that is just a narrative that is kind of stemmed from the right wing of, immigrants are bad and Mexican build the wall, all of these ignorant ideologies that stem from people that run our country.
All these people from other countries are hearing how easy it is to come into this country. Everyone's doing it. And then they're getting our government to pay for, their housing. And then we have already, as it is, so many homeless people in our country that are not being taken care of.
I think an attitude of tolerance would go a very long way. I don't think that's been tried recently at all. I think a lot of people want to move here for a lot of different reasons, as have all the people that have already moved here by choice.
It's creating a big problem. It's creating wear and tear on services. And it's creating issues for the immigrants that have been here a long time, that it took a hard time to get asylum and benefits and whatnot. And people are just coming in now and just getting everything for free.
We do have a very big problem in Queens. All of the hotels, are filled up with migrants, if that's the term we're going to use. They're filled up with that. And I think that we do have a homeless problem, but not for the migrants, for the American citizens. I have people coming in here that are homeless, and I feed them because I can see them. And they tell me stories that in the shelters, that they will see apartments for rent, and they are told, that's not for you, that's for the migrants. And that's unacceptable. There are American people, I see military people on the street, Black, white, Asian, all kinds of people on the street, and they come in here and I see they are really hungry. And the shelter has very little food for them. Things are being cut because they want the migrants out, so there's not enough food for they. And so I feed these people. The border needs to be closed. The border most definitely needs to be closed. I mean, the report came out last week, 500,000 criminals are let in. I mean, any person that comes here, my husband migrated here. We did it properly, right? So people come here and that's all right. We accept that. But not just anyone crossing the border, especially with the climate. There's a lot of people coming in and out. We don't even know who they are. I mean, it's a big problem. We need to close that border. We need to find out where all the people are. I mean, there's a lot of drugs coming in. They take the children. They take, trafficking, sex trafficking is bad. And that is real. They could sit there on the news and say that these things aren't real, but they are real. And we need to stop it.
you know, like the immigrants that come over here, it's like, you know, they get funded, and supposedly it's a lot of, you know, killers and rapists of that nature, you know, like those type of people I feel shouldn't be on the streets, you know, and they let them come over here and they still get funded. And when that money runs out for whatever they trying to do, it's like, you know, the crime, they go back to crime.
I think there needs to be comprehensive immigration reform at the congressional level, much like the one that was proposed earlier in the year that President Biden finally tried to get to. But yeah, I think that would be a good step.
There is a rule and a process that you must follow. Who are you to come here and get everything overnight because the current political powers that be allow something like that to happen?
We are a country of immigrants, and so I believe that this is a place where people come because they can have a democratic and a better lifestyle than where they were.
The most pressing issue is immigration issue.
Let's say more processes that enable migration in a safe manner, and that anyone that wants to migrate to the U.S. should be able to.
I think one of the problems we have in migration is we have such a limited supply of high-quality immigration visas, because I know the tech companies I've been involved with have trouble getting their own people moved from India or Egypt or some other country to the U.S. when they want to promote them and bring them here as a rotation. Same as the big international companies send people to Europe or China for a while.
Of course we want to help these people, but they're coming here not legally, and that's a no-no for me.
I think we have a lot of talent here in the United States that we should use and give them opportunities.
So many different thoughts on immigration and what Queens thinks. There's just so much to unpack there, Peter.
There really is. Let's remember one thing. In large measure, immigrants built this country. And I think there's general agreement that we want to get control of the border and we want to stop illegal immigration. And there has been a bipartisan bill that has passed the Senate. The House has not yet passed it, and they need to get to that. It's been stalled because of politics, but now after the election, let's get to it, get control of the border, and support legal immigration, which makes our country more diverse and thus better.
And something else that makes our country better is social media. And someone who's been watching our social media feeds all night is Hannah Chow. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Gail.
So give us an update. What have you been seeing? What have you been hearing?
That sounds good. And we do receive a very positive comment from Tony, who is a resident in Queens, New York. And the message is, we, people of America, we have been blessed by God to have a free nation. And today we exercise our freedom by voting. Whatever the outcome, we know that God will continue to guide our marvelous country. So please don't worry, everything will work out in the end. Be positive, stay happy and hopeful. We are Americans. We will continue to improve individually and as a nation. God bless America.
All right.
That is a beautiful, beautiful sentiment,
Nice.
Hina. What else are we hearing?
Yeah, so we also have a question from Mary, who is a local resident in New York. Her question is, what Republican Party has done to ensure there's no cheating from Democratic Party?
So that was a question for us. Let's see. Indeed. What has the Republican Party done to make sure that the Dems aren't cheating? And I guess the question really is a bigger question. What are we doing to ensure that election integrity?
Election integrity is so important, and it's a bipartisan issue. We both care about election integrity, whether Republicans or Democrats or independents. And, you know, each state takes care of its own elections. Thank goodness, because we have 50 different states, and it's hard for the Russians and the North Koreans and the Iranians to hack 50 different systems. And in general, our elections are very secure. And thank you to the public servants who are stepping in and working for their election boards and doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Hina, what else are we hearing?
Yes, I found this is a very interesting and also very engaged social media post. So this influencer mentioned watching Donald Trump and Elon Musk, two men who together have 17 children with 6 different women, preach about traditional families. Now imagine that was a woman. I feel this is a very interesting perspective for all the women, and to rethink about who we are choosing and about the traditional family values for the nation as well.
Absolutely, that double standard between men and women. If a man does something versus if a woman does the same thing. I love that she posted that. Really in tune with what's going on in the election and also, you know, in the greater Queens areas. Do you have anything else for us right now?
Indeed. And also very interesting is also like Billie Eilish, the fans, the influencer, like the fans are using the social media platform to urge fans to vote as well. So for example, Billie Eilish is urging fans to vote for Kamala Harris. And she said election day is finally here. Voting for Kamala Harris and Team Watts is an unbelievably important way to protect our freedoms and future. Nothing changes without your votes.
Really nice. And I noticed that both of them were recently on Saturday Night Live. Billie Eilish a few weeks ago, and of course Kamala Harris this last Saturday. Which social media platform have you found the most activity tonight?
It is absolutely the X, the former Twitter.
I'm sorry?
The X, which is the Twitter, former Twitter platform.
Yes. All right, so reach out to us, guys. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, please take to your social media and hit us up at Qptv on Instagram and, of course, on Facebook. And you could be watching us right now on YouTube Live. Peter, thoughts?
My thoughts are I'm a little backward when it comes to social media because I'm still on MySpace. But this is a fact of modern life. And I say, influencers, speak your mind. And educated citizens will be able to judge for themselves if they agree or not. And that's the key. Critical thinking, I think our citizenry can handle a variety of opinions on all kinds of social media.
And the thing about social media as far as elections go, you know, our students at Queensborough Community College, young people all over this country, young people all over this world, they finally have a platform to weigh in on the elections. So even if they're too young to go out and vote, they can still find out about what's going on in their local backyards, across their countries, across the world, on social media. And they can take part in the election like we saw tonight.
They sure can. Social media is a net positive, and education will help all Americans make intelligent, informed decisions for themselves. I really believe that.
Thanks so much, Peter. And let's see what people in Queens had to say about candidates with this segment, My Candidate.
Right now, I'm supporting Kamala Harris, and really not for her views in general. I mean, I'm kind of independent, but I just don't like Donald Trump, so that's kind of the reason why.
Harris, because I cannot support President Trump. I respect the people who do support him, and I understand where some of them are coming from, but I cannot support him.
I'm actually undecided. I really don't know because I feel like we have 2 pretty bad candidates. I think we kind of got unlucky with Kamala Harris. Like, I'm kind of moderate and I lean towards Democrat, but like in my opinion, I feel like if there was a president, if there was like a candidate in the Democratic side that was somebody other than Kamala Harris, it could have been one of the most anybody. I think they would have won the candidacy.
I don't support either of the main candidates. I'm looking at outsider candidates. I don't think the Democratic or Republican Party has anything new to give us other than what they've been giving us many times over for the last several years.
I don't support any of them. I don't support any of them.
I support Kamala Harris, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for Kamala. I'm now president 2024. What?
Trump has been consistently positive in giving to all members of the American community an uplift. Okay? And the other side doesn't acknowledge that. But he was very good for everybody.
Right now I'm supporting Kamala Harris, probably because she just seems intelligent, unlike the other side, and like her policies. I like her demeanor, and she's bringing a little sense of hope, I think, that a lot of individuals in America are seeming to lose. A little bit of positivity, a little bit more of like hope that we can stop this dark time that we're kind of been in for a while.
Trump. I support Trump. You know, actually really having world peace, you know, is probably the best thing.
I'm a Democrat because, you know, I didn't grow up in America, but I grew up in Jamaica where I came here. My mom, all my family is Democrat, so I just joined the board.
I don't know if Trump has enough capabilities to govern the United States.
I support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz 100%.
So I don't have anybody that I'm supporting yet. I'm still doing a lot of my research because, I want to make sure that all cards are on the table.
Well, right now I'm supporting Kamala Harris, Democrats. I have it is faith. I have faith in that they will operate in representing what's best for the country. I mean, of course, they're not perfect. But then the president alone can't just do things. I mean, we have to rely on both houses, both the House and the Senate, to make legislation. The president can do certain things, but the president can't just go, poof, okay, it's going to be this way. And so I believe that they will follow through with the House and the Senate and follow those rules. And I think they have, I think they really do have the general public, us people, everybody here, in their hearts.
I do not support any candidates.
I definitely don't support Kamala because Kamala is for a whole thing that's not supportive, shouldn't be supported at all. So.
A lot of different diverse voices here in Queens about the candidates. And speaking of the candidates, with another update on the election results, it's Cliff Jacobs. Hi, Cliff. How's it going?
It's going very well. Again, this is a squeaker. Right now, the tabulation is Kamala Harris has 205 Electoral College votes to Donald Trump's 230. She has 56,000 or 47% of the popular vote, and Donald Trump has he has 51% of the popular vote. But I want to touch on some of the local races that I mentioned earlier. Kirsten Gillibrand was reelected by a large margin. The Equal Rights Amendment that was on the ballot this year passed overwhelmingly. Giving more powers to the sanitation department passed, as did the fiscal analysis for the city charter from the city council. That also passed. Public safety legislation, as well as capital planning, but the chief business diversity officer, that was defeated. Gregory Meeks won his re-election campaign, as well as Grace Meng. Nydia Velasquez also prevailed. Hakeem Jeffries prevailed in his re-election. Yvette Clark, and in Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn is Nicole Maliotakis. She also prevailed in her re-election campaign. So that's it. I don't think we'll know the result of the presidential election until sometime tomorrow morning, or maybe even the day after.
Thanks so much for the update, Cliff Jacobs. And thanks for everyone for watching this evening. The secret word, if you're from QCC and you're in one of my classes, is environment. On behalf of everyone here at QCC, including all of my hosts, Dr. Peter Bale, Paul Rodriguez, Tom Gretsch, and Hina Chow, thanks so much for watching Qptv Election Night 2024 live. It's been my pleasure. My name's Gail Lewis. Good night, everyone, and thanks for watching. God bless.